Hello, beautiful people. It's the worst podcast on the internet, as always. Our guest is here. He's doing great. He's getting some pictures ready. And I'm doing the sponsor shout outs. First, as always, Ral, vetdna.com for all of your testing needs. Use code SHITHAPPENS with the exclamation point and the hashtag for $5 off your crypto panel. And that's a great deal because that's all the crypto you ever really need. Because it does snake and lizard, which both snakes and lizards can get both. So that's pretty fun. But they also do all kinds of other testing. Arena, Nido, paramyxovirus. I tested a cat. I found a kitten in a construction site this week, and I tested it for FIV. Wow. So convenient. vetdna.com. Thank you, Chad. Shout out. We got even more sponsors. Of course. Let's go in order. Stoneage ball pythons. He's on the auction this week. He's bringing friends because he doesn't have that much to auction. He's bringing cue ball morphs and another friend who I didn't catch his business name. So it'll be him and some friends so they can do combined shipping with cue ball and Stoneage and other friend. So we love that. Very efficient. Powerhouse Pythons, another Pacific Northwest ball python breeder, trying out some new things. Check out his Husbandry Pro store. It's linked down below. Lots of stuff coming up. And he'll be on an auction in this after Christmas. Bravo Zulu, ball pythons, a veteran-owned woman breeder. We love women. We love veterans around here. Last time I checked. So check her out. She's still has a lot of het puzzle stuff on her website, and she just been at a show, and I messaged her to get an update, but I didn't get that yet, but I will report back. So I'm always interested in new weird shows, like how they're doing, what those markets look like. Small Town Xotics, he'll also be on the auction this weekend. Lots of GHI stuff, GHI combo pieds, GHI clowns, double het enhancer, G-stripe females. So good, fun project animals for him on the auction this weekend. Check him out. Small Town Exotics, Shane Kelley. Who did I not do? Oh, Great Family Snakes. We love them. VPI Xanthic Pieds is their main project. I still don't think the morph market's updated. They're probably just going to wait until after Christmas. But I'll have to check in with them. Check them out. Great Family Snakes on Instagram, Morph Market, wherever you want to be. And Chris at BNS Reptilia. He did the Keystone Reptile Expo last Saturday. I also asked him how he did. You know, people are busy. It's the holidays. But lots of Pituophis, Longicauda. Got a Longicauda in from him this week. So that's fun. I'm up to 3 Longicauda now. Is that too many? And then bloods. He also has bloods. And of course, ball pythons. So we love Chris. Thank you, BNS Reptilia. Thank you to all of our sponsors. And I think the show is going to happen now. How are you feeling?
I'm good. I'm going to play around on here a little bit as we're doing this, but I'm going to be into it, I promise.
All right. I finished my sponsor spot. 3 minutes. Okay. Record time.
Good for you. Good for you. All right. Well,
how are you doing today in general?
I'm good. I think like a lot of other people, I'm going to work my ass off today so I can maybe take one day off tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
That's how it feels. Everybody's even like busy on the internet. Like they're not posting as much because they're like, fuck, we got to hurry up. Grandma's coming.
Yeah, final grind. But no, I was working with the Boas this morning, doing some ultrasounding, kind of getting some baselines and cleaned up all the males, got them a good meal. And when I get back out there, I'm going to start working on some more pairings for the year.
Mm-hmm. Do you normally pair? A lot of people pair like they pick a time of year, like Halloween. Do you do it based on follicular size, or do you start pairing early and just spray and pray?
So here's something I've said for a long time in Boas is that, where all our literature that you can read on how to breed a Boa is all based on imported animals and the South American timeline. Mm-hmm. So I find like in my collection that I have a gravid Boa out there right now that I bred 4 months ago, but it was the only Boa I was breeding 4 months ago because she was meant to breed off season. They kind of become on their own timelines. And once you figure out what their cycle is, I've never really done temperature drops. I've never done like big fluctuations. I have done wet season, dry season food, like heavily feed, then don't feed at all, then heavily feed again and pair. But honestly, the ultrasound, I don't like to be too married to it. I like it for a baseline, but where today I got the ultrasound on the girls, these girls may not see an ultrasound again for 2 months. Once I get the males in doing their thing, I don't really want to mess with it too much. I do my feedings when necessary. I kind of keep an eye on things, but unlike ball pythons where you're constantly rotating males and looking at your females, with boa, there's so much courtship involved. Once I get the things going, I like to keep it simple. But the luxury again of an ultrasound is when, let's say I have 50 females out there and let's say 5 of them wanted to breed off season, at least I know. Also, males will keep on working a female a lot of times, even if it's over and he's not going to get anything done. So it's nice to know when, maybe I checked her today and then in 2 months she's now reabsorbing, I can walk away. There's a very unique thing that Tony Antonucci brought to my attention years ago with an ultrasound where you got these real big follicles, let's say in the mid 20s, high 20s, and then you see these little follicles dropping down in between in boas. A lot of times when you see the next ones dropping down, you're going to lose these ones and they're going to reabsorb. So those are little tricks that I think are good with boas when it comes to ultrasounding. But honestly, I'm kind of also a little more old school about it where, I want the animals to do the work. I want to read their body language. If a female's hugging the cool side, I can almost guarantee she's developing. If a female boa is wrapping a water dish like we do with ball python logic, same thing. I'll get a male in there and see what happens. But no, like I said, I think with most species, there's a million different ways to do it. This system has worked with me where we've had good years over the past few.
Yeah, do you pair at 15 millimeters ish or?
It's a yes and a no. Sometimes I like to get a male in early, but another thing I used to do is I'd put a male in on the first day of the month, and if he's not quartering or within the first 5 days, he's out. Clearly he's not interested. I don't really have a desired follicle. I guess 15 might be a good starting point, but even like with ball pythons, I find that I have my best success rate when you pair a ball python at 6 millimeters for the initial lock to kind of get things going for the year. I feel like that first lock of ball pythons is important. So 6 millimeters every year we start introducing, but then we really start hustling with food when they start getting over 15 or 20.
Boas, do you feed boas while you're pairing them? You don't do the starve them?
Yeah, no,
I mean, feed them. That even if you don't cool, where you fast them, I'll do an 8-week, sometimes 3 month. Fuck it, I'll just be like, bye. Y'all need to go have sex, and then I'll start to feed them as she's getting bigger, and that's sometimes that'll trigger an ovulation. It feels like.
Oh yeah,
could be confirmation bias there.
No, meal stimulation is so important. Some people, you can hear people blame not feeding their animals enough every year. With certain localities of boa, some of the smaller stuff, I think it's what I've heard with a lot of guys is it's a little more spaced out meals. With the Colombians, honestly, once I get them going, I wouldn't say I have a precise amount of meals I put in them. It's more I go in there one day, oh cool, they're separated. Let's get a meal in both of them really quick and let's go ahead and reintroduce. I don't think you need a million locks with boas, but sometimes courtship looks like a lock for new people. You're not always getting the tail underneath wrapping. So I feel like a long season with the male in there is really important. And that's why a lot of times we only do one male to one female every season. And there was other breeders, like if you get the Jeremy Stone DVD did years ago, he talks about he would have 2 males per 1 female. Just in case. But I wouldn't say there's a precise amount of food to give them. I will say this year I'm going to do some things with the ultrasound with a couple females where I'm going to give them certain size meals and see how much their follicles might increase based on the size of the animal and the size of the meal to see if there's anything there. But most boa guys all kind of have their way of doing it. Mine is, I don't know, I'm just watching the female. And, sometimes late in the process, they'll refuse. I know I'm being really vague about this, but again, there's 50 different ways to breed boas, 50 different environments. Sure. You kind of got to get a rhythm going yourself. Like I said,
10,000 different boas. You have a huge latitudinal range, so they're all used to different everything, and then
Yep.
you brought them to a different climate, and then they're like, I'll do something. But you
No.
almost have to like work your room and animals for a while to figure out what you even want to do.
Oh yeah, and like I said, that collection's all kept in the same settings all year round, and I've got females out there that are now just reabsorbing because they didn't go on the off season. I've got some that are at 6 to 9 millimeters, and then I have gravid boas out there that I bred months ago, and I have some females that are almost 30 millimeters already without even introducing a male.
Mhm.
That was my fault for not checking in September, but they started building a little faster than I expected them to this year. I guess October is about that time of the year that I really need to be pairing. If I'm not pairing by November, I'm probably going to see a lot of early slug outs in the year.
Mhm.
Last year there was a group of animals just because we didn't have enough males that I just waited till December, January to pair them, and I got a lot of slug outs.
Mhm.
So I do think that, again, that early stimulation between 10 to 15 millimeters, if you're pairing, is important. And then after that, once he's given off that right pheromone, he's going to be all over until the job's done.
Right.
As long as it's a good breeder male.
Yeah, so I have an ultrasound for the ball pythons mostly, and I've used it on the boas for fun, like because I'm just like a 1-to-1, and I'll just keep putting the male in forever, like, you know. So, but would you recommend a new person getting into boas get an ultrasound just
Man,
to watch what's
well,
happening, or use it for management purposes, or do you think it's necessary?
I don't think it's necessary because it wasn't anything that I started to add into the equation until about, I'd say about 5 years ago.
Mhm.
Here's the reality of things. I couldn't afford an ultrasound years ago. I had to do everything visually. I had one very unique year where I did define all science in boas, where I did food cycling in one rack system because I only had one male to breed 4 females. And what I did is, like we talked about, I started feeding one heavily introduced the male while feeding him throughout the whole thing. Once I got an ovulation, I pulled him, fed him for 2 to 3 weeks. But prior to that ovulation, I already started feeding the next girl up, and I kind of staircased my way up. And I got 3 perfect litters, and my last litter was a complete disaster. Slugs. Some of the babies were deformed. I think at that point I had run him dry, and
Mhm.
that last female was just getting whatever was left in the season. But I did that pairings over about an 8-month period, and over the course of that year, I got 3 really good litters out of that male and 1 slug out pretty much at the end. So, but that was all visually and with food cycling. So again, and that was in North Carolina. I bred them I bred boas in Cleveland. I bred boas in Buffalo, New York. I bred them in Charlotte, North Carolina, and now I've bred them in Missouri. So, I've been all over the place with different environmental differences, and I've always found ways to make it work.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's why like boas popularity has one of the many reasons maybe has gone down a bit. Is people are like they're too hard to breed. It's impossible. And
Uh,
you're like, it's clearly some people breed it, so it's just a management question. The animals are capable of breeding.
yeah. So jumping around on that a little bit, 2 things with that, the fear behind boas. Number one, everybody's saying they're very hard to breed. And then number two, of course, we were talking earlier, arenavirus, IBD. I mean, that's
Mhm.
something that still terrifies people today.
Mhm.
I'm still kind of loose on how I feel about all that. I think the arenavirus was something that was discovered in Europe, if I remember, and started being used over there. And then maybe we started adopting that language over here with the projects. But arenavirus wasn't a thing that I was really knowledgeable about for the longest time. And, again, with the IBD thing, if it was what it was, I don't think we'd have boas right now. I'm not going to say that things were necessarily blown out of proportion, but I do think that there was some fear mongering there. And then again, an inexperienced hobby. Everything was so new to us back then, in the
Mhm.
90s, early 2000s, when we started talking about IBD, that scared the hell out of people. There were people that talked about how their ball python collections died because their boas had IBD. There was some stuff going on with Burmese pythons around then that was kind of like scaring people.
Well, it's still happening now. So if arenavirus gets into your ball python collection, it's much more fatal to the ball pythons than it is to the boas, because the boas can persist for indefinitely with like a low infection of arenavirus. But like they are like it is transmissible to other species, and it is far more deleterious to other species. So it's like worth, even if this is like a debate in the Discord constantly. Like, if your boa is arena positive, but fine, it is vertically transmissible. So all the babies would, not all of them, but most of them could be infected by the mother. Is that animal like worth euthanizing if it's otherwise fine? Because it's a risk to other species, basically.
Okay. Now I've heard there's two different ways from which you've read. Does arenavirus or IBD pass on to babies?
Yeah, so that's what vertical transmission means. So,
right. So Elliot Jacobson told Pete Call back in the 90s that he had IBD in his collection and he had to put his whole collection down. What happened at that point, from what I can remember, is he did put some animals down and then went, what am I doing? These animals seem fine. Why would I do this? He was the one who founded IMGs. That's in every collection in the industry. He's the one that founded the jungle gene, the arabesque gene, the albino gene. If that guy's collection had IBD and it passed on to every baby and everybody was fucked, there wouldn't be boas right now. So essentially that either means that every boa does have IBD and they can live with the virus, or it means that it didn't pass on how it thought it was.
Have you read the paper? It's like called like vertical transmission of, I don't know, something in boas, and they showed like the father was infected and the mother. They bred them both. Some babies got both strains in them. Some babies got none. Some babies got moms, and some babies got dads.
Okay.
So there are some nuns, even though they're born into a soup and there's blood everywhere and everybody's juices are all over. So they could still like persist. So it's still possible in a situation where arenavirus is bad and we don't want it to have negatives born from positive pairings. But you also have positives. So you would have to like test. And they actually like culled the babies, check the brain, liver, and blood. Obviously, because it can hide in the central nervous system.
Yeah. So I guess
they know for sure it's vertically transmissible, but not perfectly so.
Okay. Well, there's always wiggle room in science. I think just, a lot of what I talk about when it comes to this kind of stuff too is, based on experiences in the industry over the years, just seeing what has happened to certain collections when, certain viruses have been introduced. Some things, cryptosporidium is one of my favorite conversations, in leopard geckos. That's something that's extremely lethal, but that's also something that every wild gecko, from what I've read and heard from breeders, has cryptosporidium. That's why when a new mutation comes in from the wild, because that's really what I hear is the only population control Mother Nature has over that species. From what I hear, again, lack of predators. But when you bring them in, we're not introducing these animals right into a collection. We're then breeding them to these animals. We're pulling those eggs, and those animals are not passing on the virus. Now, I do believe that it's either from they can't live on the surface long enough of the egg, or there could be something in the female's fluids that she puts on the egg before burying it that actually kills the virus on the outside. I've heard a lot of different things from
it's a parasite, not a virus. So it's like bigger, right? And the oocyst, there's two kinds. There's a thick-walled phase and a thin-walled phase. And the thin-walled would die just from exposure. And the thick-walled can persist in the environment for 6 months or something, potentially. But it can degrade and become less viable with UV or you need a certain sort of dose to infect the baby, and it would have to eat it off of the surface or lick the surface of the egg as it's escaping. And so so it's not so in that way, crypto isn't vertically transmissible because she doesn't, pass crypto oocyst from her cloaca into the egg because it's already shelled before it gets to her cloaca. So yes, but I guess the problem is like we're doing like monoculture. So if something is kind of bad in the wild, but like the weak ones die and the strong ones like persist and are like in equilibrium with their like inner biome of parasites and viruses and bacteria, and so like that's what's keeping their population in check. We're doing like monoculture, so we need like a more a less infectious environment. We need to be doing more testing to like make sure we're not propagating stuff. But yeah, we don't know enough about what their natural biome is to begin with to make
No, I think
100% statements about anything, but I don't want
no,
arena in any of my boas.
no, of
That's
course
what
not.
I want.
Now, okay, so with the arena virus too, now if the animal's not shedding the virus, you can test a positive animal and still get negative back.
That's correct. The
And
best
that's
way
what
to
a lot
know
of
would be to kill it and open its brain up.
Yeah. So like I said, I think the toughest thing about all these conversations, just from, I guess, being a breeder over the years, is I hear these horror stories, I hear all this fear stuff, but I also know that, the practice and the hobby has not always been perfect by every breeder, yet everything still seems to be functioning and expanding and not dying off like we were promised it would in some of these cases. Now there
I
has
know, but
been
you don't know the people who left. So like I killed my boas because they had arena virus in them, and I
yes.
left. So like I was like the loser, right?
Well,
I was
no,
the loser.
you
But
were
like those
responsible.
people just run away and they just leave the hobby, and you don't know that their colony fell apart, and then they collapsed. They euthanized the rest of them because they couldn't tell them apart.
Yeah.
How many
Well,
boa people are still in now that were in 20 years ago, though?
well, Jeff Ronnie, of course. Vin Russo, of course. Basically, Boas has been doing this forever. Man, 20 years ago, I think Perfect Predator may still be going in Florida. I'm trying to think of what other ones might pop up on the radar, but you're right. Some of the bigger collections from back then aren't around anymore.
Right. Doesn't mean it's because of arena virus. I don't want to like conflate that. I'm just saying like there's a survivorship bias. So like if you think the boa hobby is still fully functional, you only see the ones that made it. You don't see the ones that didn't make it. So that would be changing your perspective of what the impact of arena virus was.
I do agree with that. So, well, how about this? I got a question for you. So let's just say with, Elliot telling Pete Call years ago that his collection had IBD. And again, Pete Call supplying the entire industry and and pretty much the world market with boa constrictors for 20 years. Do you think we'd be getting more positives? Because I've even had times where I've had animals tested before sending them to Europe. And I'll be honest, I'm always scared shitless when I test any animals because you never know what you're going to get, even if you do things right.
Right.
And I keep getting negatives.
Well, I mean, famously, Pete Cole bought an anery male, bred it to a bunch of albinos to make snows, and killed them all. So, like, that might not even have been arena. It could be something else,
That could have been some kind of virus because, like, as you were talking before, you could have a male and a female carrying a virus and they're perfectly all right. And then you breed them together and it shows in all the babies and it kills all the babies.
Right. Like co-infection of the different strains is probably what would cause symptoms. Like that's what the literature is. So like if you have Golden Gate and whatever, one of the other variants, like 2 is worse. Or if you have Golden Gate and I don't know, maybe you got infected with any of the other like hundreds of viruses that ruin snakes' lives. Like it's the co-infection and maybe even like bacterial and then like an immunosuppression. Because it's breeding season and they made them cold, then you would get symptoms. But like the answer is still don't have any arena virus if you can help it.
No, 100%. Right? And that's why the Europeans are so cautious when they get animals in the country and they want you to test them for good reason. Some of the best breeders. Well, what the thing is about, and then we don't have to talk about scary things this whole time. We get into some fun stuff.
We got to get to happy stuff.
Yeah, but what was I going to say about that? Nobody takes the medical side of the industry serious until they have to deal with it.
Right, you're not scared of fire until you're burned.
Yeah, and when you come in the hobby, you see all these animals and you see all these conversations and you see all these really amazing things about it, but like, the old school guys don't fuck around anymore because everybody's dealt with something in the hobby at least once. It's not perfect. We're working with living animals. So, I find early on when people come in the hobby, they don't hear enough about viruses and they don't take things like that serious enough. They don't quarantine. They don't do a lot of stuff. And, when you talk about things that can go wrong, like that's number one, like what you're talking about, run into an issue with your collection, having to start over. We don't talk enough about this coming in. So these people just assume this is just fun all the time. But, You know,
Right.
the reality
Go
is,
to a reptile show and touch every table worth of slop.
yeah, and you know that's my argument too. Again, with the rhinovirus or IBD, because I remember back in the day they said IBD was airborne, which means every ball python and every show that had boas at it that probably had IBD would have been dropping
Right.
off.
It's not airborne,
No,
as
it's
far as
not.
we
But there
know.
was fear early on that people
Right.
talked about that kind of stuff. But no, okay. Well, now after you're scared shitless about this, boas. So once you get past not having IBD or rhinovirus and you figure out rotations, I find boas to be really easy. And honestly, I find a lot of species to be easy if you just pay attention to your animals.
Mhm.
You know, once you learn the body language and the flow of your collection, you know, things just become easier. You know, sometimes you won't need the ultrasound. You know, we talk about the glowing ball pythons when they're really building up their follicles. Back in the day before ultrasound, it was all about the ball python glowing, getting the male in there when they're glowing.
Mhm.
Like I said, it's with boas, I wouldn't allow myself to be scared because somebody says they're hard to breed, because too many defeatists. I'm not that smart, but you know, I look at animals, I watch what they do, and I just try to find a way to make it work. You know, that's all there's to it. You know, don't not get into boas because you think it's gonna be a difficult species. You know, I've always thought that people got into Bolins over the years because it was a difficult species and they wanted the challenge.
Mhm.
You know, come take the challenge on and be surprised how easy it is when you start paying attention to what you're doing.
Yeah, I think boas, there's a lot of ways that boas are a good species to get into. Like, because you need almost 1-to-1 male female ratio, like the males are not so devalued by the time they're
Yep.
4. You can keep them like forever, potentially, if they're like strong, and you need backup males. So like their values are very similar. There's like a really strange situation in ball pythons where like the males are really valuable and then you can't give them away like
Well,
relatively quickly.
yeah, well, that's the flip in the market on the ball python side. Let's say sunset male 70,000, female 30,000, and then as that price comes down, they kind of start equalizing to the point. Then, when the male gets low enough, it's actually the female that's worth more money at the $2,000 or $3,000 point, and the
Right.
male is now sunken down. So, you know, people back in the day, I had a friend in the hobby that when he got the bamboo ball python, he ultrasounded, and I think he got 27 ovulations out of or his females out of one male one year.
Mhm.
So of course that
That's
male
pretty
is
good.
far. Oh, that's fucking awesome. And he was an early breeder, but somebody taught him how to use an ultrasound properly. Um, but you know, of course, that male is worth so much more at that point. But then later on, when the combos start changing and the whole mindset of the project changes, the females are worth more. In boas, you know, there's kind of that, but you know, the boa market really, for being a smaller market, the fluctuation in prices aren't as bad as it is in other markets.
It's quite stable. Like when I came back in 2019 from 2008, I was like, yeah, some stuff's cheaper. Like I could buy a BPI cheaper over the 10 years, but like it's there are less animals being made. The generation time is much longer, and the males are more valuable relative to their female. Like they're more equal in value. So like people aren't just dumping males wholesale for 5 cents. So it's a little
well,
bit more stable, I guess, is my point.
no, and 100% too. And then, you know, when it also comes to like, you know, paying attention to what markets do and fluctuations, you know, you got to also look at what's involved in the breeding to make what you want. You know, in boas, you know, we were kind of talking beforehand, you know, they kind of got left behind by ball pythons, in my opinion, because of the Lacey Act and because ball pythons were getting constant stimulation of new mutations, where boas were getting a new mutation every 5 or 6 years.
Mhm.
So, you know, in boa constrictors, when you're only getting a new mutation that's every 5 years or so, that might be worth working with. There's line breeding in between there. You're gonna have to figure out ways to take these projects and improve on them without adding mutations. So, in my opinion, with boa constrictors, when you're talking about the value of a male and a female being higher in a lot of projects and some lower, you know, I look at high as I want to breed the most perfect boa to the most perfect boa to make the most perfect boa to hold back to breed to my next perfect boa.
Mhm.
And I'm going to do that for years until maybe I get a new pattern that's introduced to the hobby or maybe a new color I can work with. So that also, in my opinion, changes values. You know, red rum was a good example that I love red rum. I think it's one of the
Is that your
stronger.
favorite pastel line?
Man, it's been so good to me in the hobby. Some of the greatest things I've done is because I got an early chance to invest in that project. Thomas Cobb got Petco, which is his famous red rum female DPIT positive that was produced by Anthony, and I bought a male from that litter. I believe that Richard from RC also got early stuff from that project, and I know he kicked a lot of ass with it. He was breeding red rum to red rum and making what he was called double dose red rums. But still today, when you look at his projects, you'll see red rum influence in certain things he did. But the cool thing for me with red rum, and when you talk about investing in an animal, I paid $5,000 for that male when VPIT positives were selling for like $1,200, but he was perfect. And then I finally, 2.5 years later, started breeding him, and I bred him to a monster tail het T positive, and I made these phenomenal looking babies that I was able to sell for $5,000. So 2.5, 3 years later, and that market had not changed because it still came down to the quality of the animal you were producing.
Mr. Philippek says, Dave, you are very handsome today. Thank you, William.
He tells me that on a daily basis, but that means a lot to me right now, too.
Right. He's just trying to fluff you a little bit. Thank you, William. And thank you, Kate Constrictor. $5 also. We love any dollars. So thank you. And all right, we can talk about pied boas. So there's 2 competing lines of pied boas, and some of them were released on Morph Market last year, besides like the syndicated back door part. Do you have any thoughts on?
So there was the Lewis Market animal, which was the darker looking pied, and then there was the Guatemala pied that I believe is Capital Constrictors might have. Now, oddly enough, they were discovered, I think, kind of around the same time, but of course in completely different regions. Is
that suspicious or? Well,
I guess I don't really know for sure because, look at back in the day with the albino. We got the P-Call line of albino. Brian Sharp imported his own line. He bred it to the P-Call line to discover that it wasn't compatible. So that was 2 albinos in the wild within a few years of each other. I guess once people know what they're looking for, things like that where they seem weird, I don't really overthink them. I hate that I'm not really good with names, but there was a breeder with the Honduran Boa project where, from what I heard, and I hope I'm not mixing this up with like a Costa Rican, but I think with the Honduran stuff in the Onyx project, he bred 2 normals together, and I believe I heard the Onyx came out, a T positive came out, and maybe an aneurystic gene, or there was something else in there, but 2 wild-caught animals bred together ended up being het for 3 similar genes and produced them in the first litter. Now, the Onyx project is a codom, so
it'd be weird if it was het.
Yeah, but I have heard it's also, I don't know, I don't want to talk too much about this because I do know there's mixed conversations, but I thought it was also allelic with...
The Onyx people will fight you.
Yeah, well, I've got a lot of respect for the dwarf boa community. My buddy Mac Robinette kind of really got me back into like loving that stuff. Warren Booth, what he's done has really got me back to loving that stuff. Dwarf boas for the longest time were kind of just dwarf boas, but now that these very unique mutations are popping up and, we're not out, we're keeping them pure. There's a purist community, and where the dwarf boa guys, like, they love their morphs, most of them, the Guyana guys, the Suriname guys don't give a fuck about morphs. They care more about their pure localities. So again, there's so many different avenues in boas that you can go down, and you'll probably find a way to offend somebody along the way. Here's the thing, and I know he's listening, but some people don't like Richard Albono's work. Richard has taken different localities. He's mixed things around. He's put boas with boas to make better looking boas. And in the process, he's done some very unique stuff that a lot of people wouldn't have done. And because of that, he has probably one of the more unique collections, in my opinion, in the hobby. Because he's not just limited to one mindset or one avenue. He's got his pure stuff that he keeps pure and does his thing. And then he's got his other stuff he mixes up to make some really beautiful animals. So, when you get into boas, decide who you want to be, and then just make sure that community loves you. I tread lightly in all communities. I love y'all. Don't attack me. I love what everybody's doing.
So there's a Sigma pied and hypothetically an Imperator pied, if it is from where it was exported from.
Yeah, so the Sigma again being the Lewis line, or the Lewis one that people call it.
I like both. Like, it would be cool if people could keep pure Sigma pied and then also make IMG panda pieds that are mutts, right? But or blood pied, so it would look like a red-sided or a pied-sided corn snake. Blood blood. Like I want people to do both. So that means the female should be bred to the pure first to like.
Well, yes.
Hopefully,
well, yeah, okay. How
if she
about this?
dies in labor, we want the first litter to be pure because you can never like come back. You know.
No, it's 1,000%. And here's the thing: I have a new possible boa mutation that I got from a gentleman in Texas. It was an animal he bought from Petco, and we'll go back to the pieds, I promise. But I'm agreeing with what you're saying when I say this. He got this animal from Petco. He showed it to me at a show. He gave it to me on a breeder loan, and then asked if I just wanted to buy the project from him. And I've sent him a couple babies, but I haven't bred them super heavily because I don't have a lot of pure Nicaraguan stuff. And I've determined based on the body structure of the animal, knowing where Petco was getting their animals the year that he bought his animal, showing it to a couple people in blind studies who went Nicaraguan with it. I believe I'm working with a Nicaraguan, but I don't have Nicaraguan stock. My only pure Nicaraguan is a pure hypo Nicaraguan out of the wild. So that's what I'm going to breed him to this year. But then next year, I might breed him to
go nuts.
like it's kind of like I want everybody to be happy. So like the first year I bred it to a super stripe because that's all I had. Second year, I'm going to breed it to this hypo. Third year, maybe I breed it to a pure blood if I can get my pure blood from Finn Russo up to size. Or maybe I'm going to breed it to a mutt blood that maybe has some salmon bow in it. Like, you know, I'm going to go both ways with that project because one, I'm limited. And two, I want everyone to be happy. I want the purists to have their pure, and I want the non-purists to do whatever they want with the project. So I think tides will probably be managed the same way. I do believe with early pairings, it was more pure locality stuff. But, you know, the reality is they're going to put albino into it. They're going to put IMG. They're going to mix it up. So, you know, I think you're going to get the best of both worlds with that project. I think people are going to be a little more motivated to get the albino version or other versions where it's a mutt, I guess we could say. And then you'll have your guys like, you know, Warren Booth or, you know, anybody else that's trying to keep things pure. That'll be like, hey, I want a pure one and nothing less. So I think everyone's going to get in on both sides of that. But I do think that I think you're going to see a lot of different directions of that project immediately.
Yeah, I mean, for me, not for anybody else, just for me, the boa pied is kind of, it's okay. It's not like my fave pied. It's not, maybe we'll get like more high white ones or like 50-50 whites with combos or whatever.
Yeah, maybe not.
So it'll be fun to work with one day. I'm just like, I'm not stressing. They're coming. They're, you know, it could be 10 years before they get down to a couple thousand to buy in. But I don't want to buy in now. I know a bunch of people who have them, and I'm like, Godspeed. Go ahead, work it.
Well, you know, we all buy them when we can afford it. And you know, here's the thing: when has a pied type animal not helped a species?
Right.
So retics, not that retics were falling off. Retics are always steady. They're always doing what they're doing. But I think the pied helped that community a lot. When the pied Burmese pythons became available, all of a sudden you saw people investing big money in berms. Before that, you know, I mean, they come down in price in a lot of the projects. There wasn't, of course, anything new being introduced. And like I said, with this project with boas, like, have you followed the Brazilian rainbow boa pied project?
So I like the way they look when they're more red and white.
Okay.
I don't like, sometimes they are like a boa where it's just like or a berm pied where it's like a low slung line of white and a white belly. And then I'm like,
disrupts. Well, here's the thing. I mean, when I first saw the pied boa, I immediately referred to all the pictures I had saved of pied Brazilian rainbow boas.
Right, they look very similar.
Yeah, the low white, the way the back patterns all, you know, distorted, you know, they had a lot of similarities. And to this day, I have not seen a high white Brazilian rainbow boa. Now, I'm not saying it couldn't get there because the early retics, but I do think that different species react differently to genes. And like you brought up the blood red pied-sided corn snakes, this project might be more like a blood redded pied-side corn snake compared to a pied where you're going to get the full ringer around it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what it reminds me of. Especially since like the patches will come up in like chunks and then fall back down again. They don't seem to be trying to connect, although like we could probably work on it, but it's fine. I like it. I'm not mad at it. I'm just like, it's
beautiful.
It's what the species is going to give us for pieds, I think. And I think that's fine. you know.
Yeah.
What's most interesting to me is the hets have like aberrant seeds, and I'm like, is that a het effect from het pied, or is that just an aberrant polygenic in there?
So we'll learn over time because, Warren Booth brought up like the aberrant patterns that you got with your het leopards.
Mm-hmm.
And we had always thought that those high aberrant patterns meant it had to be het even in your pos het litters. And I do believe that he took one of those high aberrant animals and bred it to a leopard and did not make visual leopards. So, there could be an underlining pattern that gets sneaked in there, which maybe that's the case with that if it's not always showing through on your hets. But that's pretty much with the Onyx project. You can see your hets. They're visual hets in a sense. There's a lot of projects and a lot of species where I can pick out het pieds all day long until I put too many genes in there and then I can't do it anymore.
Well, yeah, like super stripes like that to me. Like sometimes some super stripes have no head effect, but some of them you're like, yeah, like it like overreacts to lots of stuff. Motley.
That was the project early on, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. I mean well. But Jablonski, like early on with that stuff, you're right. Sometimes ones that were het look better than some of the visuals, arguably.
Right.
And I love that project. I have those animals here. That honestly, in my opinion, is a very underworked project in the industry.
Do you think it's a sleeper, like a boa sleeper project? Or do you
think when you only got 10
like...
genes, they're all sleepers if you're not using them. Like, well, here's the thing. Right. I mean, look at Inca now, man. Inca's roaring in the industry, and we've had Inca for a long time.
It holds a lot of color while being like CBLT vibes, and I think that's what Motley needs because it takes a lot of polygenics to jam color into Motley.
Yeah.
So Inca almost seems to do it by itself, and so it makes a really dramatic phenotype.
It helps. And the fact that you can start making hypo versions of it and not losing your pattern and keeping all that color. The fact when you stack it on with a similar gene like Aztec, you double down on that pattern, which what is it? Was it a hypo paradise Aztec hypo paradox Aztec Inca that Richard Del Bono made this past year or something along those lines? One of the coolest fucking snakes you've ever seen. The color was unbelievable. The pattern was just like double down. A lot of room to stack on that. And I've seen a lot more people breeding Aztec to Inca now just because the double down on pattern. But
is that homozygous Inca viable? Do you know?
So here's the thing. There's still people that say that there's not a super dominant form in that one. I don't know if I've seen a super breeding, but I do think that where years ago we used to be really scared about supers, I'm starting to see now that, some of these supers are viable, not Motley, not jungle, that's never going to get you there. You might be able to keep your jungle alive, but I think maybe there was one case of bred. Super Motleys, there was that case. I don't know if you remember that post online about, man, sometime in the last decade.
It was the worst living animal I've ever seen.
The super motley female that gave litter? Right. Oh, my God.
She looked great.
Yeah.
I'll find a picture.
Before that.
We did it on the podcast. It's like the worst thing that's ever been shown on the
I think, and again, man, I got to stop name dropping Warren Booth so much because I'm sure I'm going to say something wrong eventually, but I think he was like one of the first comments in there, and it was like, I wouldn't be proud of this. Like this doesn't really prove anything,
Right. It proves that a basically dying animal can give one last ditch effort to make its progeny happen. Congratulations.
Yeah. And then you remember the smoke that pretty much put Celtic on the map there for a little while. And then I've now heard that I don't believe those animals are viable either.
Right. They do the same thing super motleys do. Like they'll lose all their muscle and disappear.
So I don't think it's always, with boa projects, I think a long time ago, a lot of us got away from making supers. Now the Super Aztec, I remember seeing them on the table, on Potts' table, I think back in, what was that, 2005, 2006 at Daytona maybe. And such a cool thing to see, because again, back then we didn't really have a lot to see, but then, the idea behind breeding changes over time. Ethics come in there, and an animal that even though it would survive, I think I remember seeing a breeding picture of a male on a female where his head was bent backwards and laying against his spine while breeding her.
Great.
And again, and I'm not saying that in a mean way. I'm
I
not one.
am.
Well, and I get that, but back then it was a different mindset on things, man. Like
I know. Well, when people were figuring out, it was fine. But I think that we have like a big problem with like communicating to like boa generation, this next generation, because like I don't know, everybody was on reptileboas.com or reptileboas.net, and we all learned that super jungles were yucky, and enough of them died by the age of 2. They were like good, and now we have to like do it all over again on a Facebook group. Like I thought we solved it, but like you don't believe your senpais, right? They just don't believe anybody. I think it's like a communication problem. Like we need like 10 more boa YouTube channels, 10 more boa podcasts, and you need to listen to your senpais and don't make super jungles anymore. I don't know why it's like a crisis.
Well, again, just because you tell one person it doesn't work, I mean, it's not like they're gonna always trust you. I mean, sometimes they need to be proved for themselves.
I guess, but that's like just like, do you like? Can't there be like a consensus of knowledge and you just believe it? Do you have to like test every scientific paper? Do you have to re-engineer your car every time you get in it? What if you just believe?
Well, you should believe. I mean, there's still
not you. I'm yelling at the people who make super jungles every year.
I'm just trying to speak for those people as you yell at me.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of the proper thing to say to help. But no, it's.
I know why they do it. It's like it's just like so much death. We already have enough, right?
It's defying the odds sometimes. I mean, here's the thing. I met a gentleman at a show in like Murfreesboro, Tennessee a few months ago who bought this really nice boa from me. And he showed me a picture of his 6 or 7 year old super jungle female that's like all of 20, 30 pounds and probably 8 feet long. It's just a pet. He's not a breeder. But again, there's rare occasions. Here's me now fucking everything up, making people think it's possible. It's one of those things that I have made supers in the past. One time it was an accident. I didn't even realize my female was a jungle with so low expression.
Right. It happens a lot. So I don't begrudge anybody accidental super jungles in like whatever. You're right. Go ahead.
It's a bummer though, because man, supers are really cool looking. But it's not meant to be. Do you remember on Pete Call's breeding pages back in the day on his .com, you can go and look at every litter and he had all his pairings. Man, was he producing a lot of super jungle albinos and sunglows back then. And man, those ruby red eyes, I remember those were like, holy fuck, that's beautiful.
Right, it's like laser eyes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The hard part, the other hard part is like people will sell them, not give them away for $20. Like people will also still sell them. And then it becomes like, are they informing them? And then you're like,
you can't police the hobby, ethical? Man. You can't police the hobby. Everyone's going to be in their own lane doing their own thing. That's why I don't
go to Facebook anymore. Fuck that place.
Yeah,
otherwise you just get mad.
Well, you can get mad. I mean, that means you're passionate about it. But me, I'm a real soft, mad guy. Because first off, I don't really like the whole social media scene. Like, I love how easy it is. I treat it like a magazine. I just flip through the pictures nonstop. I don't even read the headlines.
Well, that's why Instagram's good, because like you're like, that's fun. Click. I don't have to like worry about it.
Yeah. No, that's exactly it. But I do think that they are kind of changing their animal rules on there. I do know there are a lot of big breeders that never really did anything wrong. Like Junior from JMG Reptiles got up to like 60 or 70,000 followers, and they deleted his page. Started over. I don't know.
Yeah. Follow JMG Reptiles on Instagram, everybody, for all the hog memes that you need in your life. You need them.
He's a good memer, man. I love Junior. I bring it up a lot, but I lived with him for about 9 months to a year one time when he was a little under the weather and needed a little help, and I honestly just needed a little help too. I was kind of starting things over, and man, every day it's like between his mom, his father, and him, someone would be pulling a prank on you every day. Like and there was you were walking, like you had to be so cautious about everything because everyone was fucking with you. And it was always different pranks, but there was this one time I stayed up to like 5 a.m. working with the animals with them before I had to leave for a show, and I had Josh Roberts come in and meet up with me, and we're going to go to a show together. And I'm taking a 1-hour cat nap on the couch, and he brought one of those, those little things you pull in the end of streamer shootout?
Yeah.
Well, he had one that was like this big. It was like a cannon. Yeah, that looks great, right? So he had this giant one, and he put it like right up against the face and did it. Well, those little fuckers didn't have time to unravel, So it just like pelted my face with like wrapped up pieces of paper and then like gunpowder, whatever the fuck they put in that thing. I hit the floor. My eyes start swelling up. Like, you know, that was just life. It was great. I loved every minute of it. But yeah, Junior is a funny motherfucker.
Yeah. So like, I think like the Junior style of hog memeing and hog lifestyling or whatever's going on, like that needs to happen for every species, because that like hype makes the species desirable, not just like a pretty picture, but like the idea that there's a community and you're all working together and you're like congratulating each other on projects. Like all of that makes the species desirable or fun or whatever to pet people all the way up the chain. And I think marketing is one of my like where boa people have fallen down a little bit, is like like a lot of the old heads were old, and so they were used to like, you know, priceless. But like, and we do have some like Jason's and Brian's boas and Palumbo. They all do like a set of videos every week, but we just need more. And there's a lot of people, and so it's hard to be like, you have to do YouTube videos. but that's how we get excited about it, right?
What did Justin Quebeca do for the Clown Project?
Promoted it, marketed it, and made it like you make the industry, you make the market really
change the entire mindset of the Clown Project and the way, like you said, the market handled it. It was not a disregarded gene, but it wasn't like we knew it was kind of getting there and then it got there. And a lot of that was because of marketing with them. And you're right. If we had Jeff Ronnie's out there fucking pumping iron and doing videos now, you're not watching Jeff Ronnie's content?
I am. I have to put him on 1.5 times speed because I'm like a fucking millennial or something. I'm just like, hurry up, Jeff. They're a little long. Somebody needs to take his stuff and edit it. The content's good, but you know what I mean? Then they got to tighten it up.
Well,
tighten it up, Jeff.
I hope he doesn't see this. He's tightening up, man. Have you not seen him pop that top? That shit is fucking tight. Like, you got it, man. You better. I'm not even going to tell him you said that. No, I don't know. I mean, I do think that the content is important. But, you know, like I said, I mean, I do think that Del Bono brings in customers that a lot of other people don't. And, you know, another thing too, like, you know, an entire hobby modeled around a species. You got to think of sales pitches to get people to know that, like I used to talk to ball python breeders about fat tail geckos. Hey man, similar settings in your house. You know, go ahead and take that 28 core, pop a 1.4 in there, kind of get a little breeding group going, you know, golden. You know, and then the dwarf boa community. Hey, take your ball python out of your CB70, put one of these dwarf boas in there, buy 5 of them. You're going to love them. Like, you know, it's changing. I mean, there's marketing there, but there's truth. And, you know, where, again, you know, I say ball pythons are the gateway drug in the hobby. Once you get in and you see all these other drugs, you're going to dabble a little bit. And you're going to find something else you like. So, you know, don't just keep smoking weed, buddy. There's some crazy shit out there right now.
Like, go on a real adventure.
Yeah, I understand there's 350 strands of weed, but mushrooms are doing pretty good now themselves. You know, check out some mushrooms. But
yeah, I think I mean, this is the problem with a lot of like, let me air quote this one, like species that are not in their heyday anymore. Leopard geckos, corn snakes,
what was the last corn snake mutation?
Black diamond.
Okay, what was the one before that?
Probably microscale.
Microscale was in Germany for like 15 years.
Well, it just made it to the States.
Well, somehow we're now behind on the times. I think Palmetto might have been the other one, but I think that was also like over a decade ago at least.
Yeah, Palmetto was a long time ago. Like the ones that have come up that don't matter, like peach and stuff, they just don't matter because they don't change enough. I think so. You need like the introduction of a mutation at a regular interval, but you also need like a community of people hyping it up, like making a market, making demand. And it has to be both, because you could introduce new mutations all the time if nobody cares and no one is like hyped about it.
And that's true. I mean, the ideal mutation is something you can bring in and put into everything you already have. You know, that was always a selling point in ball pythons. You remember the paper that Will Banks wrote up about the scaleless head, and he just made the comment, we can now do everything we've already done in scaleless. We can now do everything we've done in Desert Ghost. We can now do everything we've done in Desert Ghost Hypo. Sorry, Boa guys, but someone's going to know what I'm talking about. But like boas, how about this?
It is hard with boas because like you can't make supers, and the albinos, it's a mortal sin to mix certain ones, but we can do everything in like CAT plus. You can make archangels, you could do whatever. It's fine. It's viable.
You shouldn't make super spot noses. Spot nose is probably one of the most important patterns in ball pythons.
Right.
You could. They survive. They're a little wobbly. They're gonna be a little weird some days. No worse than your spider, but they're gonna do some stuff. But
right, but of the boa's like 15 genes, most of the incomplete dominant ones, you probably should not make a homozygote. Even the ones that are viable are like viable light.
Okay, so let's go ahead and knock out 3 then. Do not make super Aztecs. Do not make super jungles. Do not make super motleys.
Or super Celtics.
Is that just a black snake too?
Yeah, it looks like a smoke.
Looks like a smoke. Interesting. I mean, I should have assumed that, but that was another weird one in that I don't know if we're all talking about, but so if that's allelic with motley, then motley's allelic with hypo, so hypo's allelic with Celtic. So do the Celtic guys talk about that yet?
Did they decide?
Well, I mean,
so they are allelic, but I think it's because it's on the other side of the whatever. Like, let's say it's like overexpressing a gene or underexpressing a gene. Since hypo is the other direction, it sort of cancels each other out like blackhead and spot nose. So that homozygote is fine in hypo motley, and I would assume also fine in hypo Celtic because it looks fine.
Fine, but do we talk about? I don't hear a lot of talk with Celtics about them being allelic with hypo. I only really hear the talk about them being allelic with motley.
I think it's because it's hard to see because it doesn't fight back as well as.
But in the breeding, if you have a hypo Celtic and I breed it, half the babies are coming out hypo and the other half are coming out Celtic, and I can't make a hypo Celtic.
Right. It should be allelic. Is that what you're asking?
I'm kind of just saying that it's something we don't really discuss. Like, I don't know if it's because we just don't talk about Celtics anymore. But
it's like we don't talk about Bruno. We made a smoke and then everybody got depressed and ran away. I think Inca is like the better alternative because it's more Germanic and it's another CBLT. I don't know how many CBLT type genes we need because we got a lot, but that one's like the better one.
Yeah. Well, again, we're working with what we have.
Brandon's correct. Super fires are amazing. They're good. They're viable.
Super labyrinths are great. Right? Super Chi West seem to be viable. I used to hear Roswell ladders. No, are they not?
So sometimes they are.
Okay.
Here's what I've been told. They tend to like rupture their sacs in their mothers early, and so most of them are stillborn. And I'm like, what the fuck kind of information is that? That's what I've been told. Item 1. Item 2, some of them kind of croak early, but a lot of them are viable-ish. So like those are all rumors. Don't yell at me. I swear to God.
Well, no, you're fine. And here's the thing. And
listen, I've yelled at more for like trying to explain that like super hypos are like they get the flat tire thing as they get older, and people are like, no fucking way. And I'm like, what are you talking about? It's like a known fact. I'm like, no. It's like this has been like an argument on the internet. I'm like, it's fine. They're fine. They breed, but they get the little flat tire as they get older.
A little bit. Now, does that happen when you cross salmon with orange tail? Like, does that change any? Like, I don't know enough about that because I've never heard a lot of complaints about super hypos.
Because people don't make them anymore. I think it's because they're like too reducey. They like cover up too much.
They
make them on accident almost.
Yeah, I think on the super hypo in projects is how people feel about pastel ball pythons at this point. Where I'm all about hypo boas. You're right. Super hypo sometimes takes away from what you're trying to do.
Right. All right. You want to get into even more drama? Carbon?
Well, fuck, man. Because here's the thing. I have an opinion on it, but my opinion is based on my eyeballs and nothing more.
They do look nicer than just like a regular run-of-the-mill BEA out of the bushes.
Well, do you want to know why?
Because they came out of partial Colombian Aztec crossings.
Heavy Colombian blood in the project. So what that is like when you look at the CA stuff and the Dorfo stuff, they're kind of dirty. The CA Motley looks kind of dirty compared to like a Colombian Motley. They just have like a little more going on. So in my opinion, based on region, where RDR originated, where the Pots are breeding their animals for years, I believe that at some point along the way, of course, black-eyed anery was just bred into Aztecs. Maybe some possets were floating around for 20 years, and it happened that way. And I do think that's why specters kind of have a little more of that dwarf boa influence in the overall look of the animal, and why
especially the shape of their head, that like really round little bulldog head.
Yeah, I generally think it might have been something along the lines of, black eye was floating around. Fortunately, the right animals were put together, and fortunately, the carbon project started. I think carbons are beautiful. Now, here's where I'm gonna like redeem myself if anybody's crying. I think that the RDR is the future of boas with the anerythristics. I think when basically boa came out and did the blizzard boas, showed how much different that gene reacts. And another thing that I've been saying for a while, I don't think that RDR is anery. I think RDR is xanthic. And I think that's why you're getting such a different look with your boa constrictors.
So I think it's more anery and xanthic, but I have seen some now that do turn a little teeny bit yellow, which is still better than piss yellow snow.
Yeah, you're gonna get a taste.
But that's all. But what do you think about the either anery 1 RDR double homozygous or 2 RDR double homozygous? What do you think?
Well, here's the thing. Do you want to piss off the purist or not piss off the purist?
This isn't like the morph section, so we can.
No,
the locality part doesn't matter.
Well, it kind of does and it doesn't. I mean, if I want a bigger boa, of course, I'm going to put type 1 into it. But also, has anybody even tried making a double visual type 1, type 2? I heard back in the day that there was all kinds of issues with that.
So
would you know?
2, no. But I've heard, but black-eyed anery and 1 have been done.
Here's a question: have you ever seen a type 2 anery snow?
No, I think it's because call and type 2 are they're allelic. That's what it is. They're on the same, or they're too close together. So it's like
impossible to make a visual.
Right, it's something like that. I don't think are they allelic? Tell me, or are they too close together on the chromosome?
Here's the thing. Hard. I don't know, because we're talking an anerythristic type gene and albino type gene. I don't know if 2 extreme genes like that could be on the same allele, or the same chromosome. It's kind of tough. I don't know for sure. I'm thinking of other species, like what you got, like Nelson milks. You could do a T negative, T positive, and they run on the same chromosome, so you make half T's and half non-T's in the first clutch. I don't know another species to compare this to. I just know that back in the day, I think Jeremy Stone did type 2 anery to albinos. I know hets were out there in the world. I had never seen a visual ever come out of that, and maybe that is what you're saying, but I'd be surprised if they were on the same, but maybe they are.
Well, so it doesn't necessarily have to be like a gene coding for like the final protein, but like a signaling molecule. So you could have a mutant allele on one side that says turn off melanin, and then a signal on the other side that says turn off xanthin, but it's actually like just the signaling part. So you could have it, but my assumption is they were just very close together. So they were sorting not independently, but dependently on the chromosome, like in corn snakes, blizzard. So like charcoal and amel, charcoal. It's one of the pairs is too close together. So it's like 1 in 200 to hit.
Okay.
Double head. It takes
for the record, if you don't mind, if you figure out that part, because I bred my charcoal to my salmon snow vanishing this year, because I bred it to something else. I bred it to a red line of albino to a charcoal for some reason in corns to make double hets. Am I screwed? Is it over? Was it dumb? Like, did I just fuck up the next 4 years of my life?
Does anybody remember in chat? It's one of the combos, and then there's another combo in leopard geckos the same way. You can make a double visual. It's just they're too close together on the chromosome. But I'll Google it.
I wonder if the leopard geckos that has anything to do with the Max Snow project, because I thought there might be something weird with that, with other combos. I'm trying to think what.
Shane, you're in the chat. What is it?
Yeah.
Somebody knows.
That's another thing. Like, if you ever get a chance to talk leopard gecko genetics with Junior, a lot of those projects are all just line bred traits. I don't even know how many actual true leopard gecko mutations there are based on recessive or codom or anything like that. And, you know, we had the lemon frost, but man, that was the last thing that happened in that community in the last 20 years. Oh no, the Black Knights.
Yeah.
But
And Cypher just came out.
Cypher, that's a new one. Oh yeah, how about this? Okay, so from your viewpoint, your 3 favorite directions you think Boas should go right now, like what do you think? I mean, obviously IMG everything. We've learned that IMG literally makes every project better. I haven't seen an IMG anything I haven't liked.
I think for some people like hypo IMGs, because it's like fighting too much. Some people like it more and some people like it less.
Yes. Some people like the fiery oranges that come through on that. Look at that Halloween kind of look, like that Halloween Amazon tree boa look.
Right. That they can be cool. I think so. Like IMG VPI snows are great as babies. They kind of look like a giant turd as an adult.
Yeah, sometimes.
Let's be honest.
Yeah, a smoky turd. A smoky turd.
Turd. You could waft it.
Yeah, it's there.
They look baller as babies, but that's why you probably need black-eyed anery instead of type 1. But because you could have both in the same animal, you don't necessarily need to reinvent the wheel. You just breed your VPI snows to black-eyed aneries and then breed back the triple heads.
Speaking of the snows, one of the pictures I think I sent you, it was the only one that went through, was that I think it was a black-eyed anery snow jungle hypo IMG. I think this animal is. I think that's everything that's in that one, and I feel bad because, you know, breeders, I'm really bad with names, but I always remember your animals. I mean, that to me is probably my favorite animal I saw produced from anything black-eyed anery or black-eyed. I always say the anery part.
I do love it. It's beautiful.
I love it. It's smoky. It's cool. It's different. That's why I say, like what you're saying, when I look at the future of a snow project with VPI, it's got to be the RDR. Like, I don't think there's going to be anything better than that. I love what Type 1 does, but I hate to say it, guys. If we're not already going that direction, it's time to start over and go that direction, because I think that's where it's going to be.
Well, what I'm saying is you don't have to start over, because
I'm going to start over.
You could, but like there's it's not distinct, but there's a phenotype difference in the homozygous black-eyed anery Type 1 and a regular black-eyed anery. It's like double, even more desaturated with black eyes, if that makes any sense. So it'll be twice as crisp and snowy.
I hadn't had this conversation before, so I just bullshit my way through it.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything about that with that. Different degrees. You know, I think it's different degrees. I think more line breeding in boas, but I haven't heard anything about the gene working that way, but I'm not surprised.
Yeah, so like, I mean, you know how if you have an xanthic and ball pythons and it takes away whatever 88% of the xanthan, you could, and the other one takes away 70% of the xanthan, and there's polygenics like fucking it up and changing the percentage, but that's how it is. You could probably make a double homozygous that takes away 92% of the xanthan, because they're sort of tag teaming. I'm not saying you should do that, because it'd be terrible to tell them apart. But in the boa case, you can tell apart black-eyed anery from anery Type 1. So you would be able to work the project, sell with knowledge what you're selling, and have a double homozygous that is distinct from either parent type.
Do you remember that the yodeler, that game on Price is Right, where he's like way up? So like, this is what we're doing right now to like people who are trying to talk into boas. Like, we start talking viruses. Oh, wait a minute, it's good. And then you're like 92%, and you're like, people are like,
too much?
Yeah, well, I think that sometimes, I mean, do you remember what it did to the hobby when they found out about ABC Desert Ghost? Like, people are like, that's it, I'm out of the project.
It's too soon. It's too soon, because now it's just C.
Yeah.
Like, oh, whoops.
No, this is too confusing. I'm not doing this. Hey, even me, I hit up Bob Boo, and I'm like, that's it. I'm going white lace. I'm done. I was like, I'm done with the project. Like, moving on. But no, it's here's the thing. I think some of these little technical things can kind of scare people off sometimes, because it makes it seem like it's a little more difficult than it needs to be. I don't think we're ready. I'm going to say it like I always say it. I don't think us used car salesmen are ready to start talking percentages of a gene showing in an animal for a recessive. How about that? I'm not.
I was just trying to explain it to you.
No, I get it. I get it. And I'm off the project now.
was more gray, like the most gray. So like you say that, Brandon, but I have a bunch of piss yellow type ones. So how do I fix them without 30 more years of selective breeding? I could throw them in the trash, or I could go get an RDR black-eyed anery and make snows in 2 generations.
Well, yeah, you went a whole new project to go a better route because you found a better quality way of doing what you wanted to do. Your end result's better.
Right.
You know, that's actually one thing, and here's my advice to the hobby that, you know, you really just got to do. You got to accept defeat when you put 8 years into something. It looks like shit. Like, it's like, oh, well, I put in all this time. Well, I better keep going. Or, you know, the other one, well, if you don't buy it, I'm just going to hold it back and make more. Okay. So you're going to have double of what somebody doesn't want.
All right. That's a good segue. Yeah. When you're selling boas, is there ever a point where you're like, fuck, these things, I've had them for 2 years. They're too big. These aren't whole backable. I'm going to vend them at a separate place, wholesale them, whatever. Does that happen? Because they do get big eventually. You can slow grow them and whatever.
So now here's me trying to create a carbon experience in the hobby. I just take the hets off the label and sell them as pets. And then if that guy sells it as a pet to somebody else without the double head, triple head for this in it, and then God forbid it goes into breeding in the future in someone else's collection and they hit the lottery, not that that's a bad thing, but like, I think sometimes, you know, you got to accept defeat. And a lot of times, and I do the same thing in ball pythons for a lot of het males and projects, they're pets. They're not investable. I always say that, you know, you got to look at your projects. Is it investable? You know, I've done some pairings where I'm like, man, people are going to love these, and they didn't love them. You know, I have some Celtic VPIT positive and Celtic sunglows. They are beautiful. Nobody's asking me about them. Now I'm over here like, fuck, should I breed them after saying don't make more of something that's dumb? But also, you know, maybe I just didn't market it properly. You know, I put flamingo into some T positive stuff last year and made some of the hottest pink hypos you've ever seen. I couldn't give those fucking things away as het T positives.
Can I tell you a theory why?
Yeah, what are you?
Flamingo.
Oh, what's your theory on flamingo? Is it the name?
The association.
Oh, with when you handcuff a guy's wrist to his ankle?
No, a perfect predator.
Oh, well, association with a project. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I mean, why do people hate sunsets? Is it because it's not red, or do they have some personal vendetta against Brian?
Like, I don't know for that one, but I know for this one, people are like, even if he's not even near it anymore, there's like,
well,
I don't know. You'd have to rebrand it, give it a new lease on life by itself. Maybe not rebrand it, keep the name, I guess, but it's hard.
Well, here's what's not. Well, okay. Well, how about this? Okay, so for people who've been doing this for a while, maybe that'd scare them off. But you know, not all these new boa guys know the history on a breeder to know whether or not a project should be tainted in a way. I don't know. Like I said,
I'm not trying to be a bitch, but I'm just telling you. If I see flamingo, I skip right past. It's like
no. Here's the thing: there are certain ball python projects I wouldn't work with because maybe I don't like a breeder. Luckily, I like a lot of breeders.
Still his best friend, and I'm like,
I'm everybody's best friend. I treat everybody equally, even if I don't like you. I'm sorry.
Okay, good. That's good. Do that.
That's the way I roll, man. Well, I'm not really one for controversy or craziness. I hate when I get drawn into anything, man. I like my bubble.
Right. I'm not involved in that stuff at all, but it was so dramatic and traumatizing, and like the weird live streams and you know, the yelling at each other and all that stuff that happened on Facebook. And you're just
wait, what are we talking about right now? We still talking about Predator?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
You missed it. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Let it slide off.
I'm sorry. But I miss it. Well, I'm aware of situations, but maybe I just missed that week.
Right. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. There's people who are like too online, and I'm probably one of them.
No, right? I think we both just get different experiences. I'm saving pictures and you're reading topics. Right. You know, for all I know, that there might have been a picture of the flamingo in that post that was all negative, and I was like, holy fuck, look at that fucking boa. Like, you know, I might have missed it over my head.
It's okay. I don't know. And the other thing that's hard in the boa world is like, it's more like this than other ones, but like someone had a bad experience, got a bad snake, a sick snake, a snake with like retained ova and died, and the person wouldn't refund them or whatever, then you tell all your buddies, and like I just believe my buddies, right? Like I don't need to buy boas all the time. I might as well buy boas from people who I know treat their customers well.
Yeah.
So like there's a lot of boa people with boa based grudges that are like community wide.
Yes, there are some community wide, and there's always gonna be quiet ones. Every community is just built with so many different people from different aspects of life. You can't expect everyone to get along. I think, one bad experience with a breeder and I typically won't work with them again. I mean, that's the truth. There's too many options out there. You're not one-stop shop anymore. This industry's too big. But no, I mean, here's the thing. I mean, I take it up the ass on some deals sometimes and I'm in the right, but I would rather just move it along and take it in the ass than get stuck on something for too long. I'm not saying take advantage of Dave, but I don't have time for nonsense. I'd rather just take the loss and move on for the time it goes in.
Dave, everybody.
Yeah, please don't. And if you do, just buy me a beer first.
All right. Well, Andrew asked, why would you skip past an animal if the progenitor doesn't have anything to do with the animals being made now? It's because the project marketing is already spoiled in a way to me. Doesn't mean it's for everybody. You can go buy whatever you want. But it's like the leader of it. And I know the call situation doesn't count. And it's probably like duration of time. Like recent drama makes me not want flamingo animals, even if they're nice, from people who aren't related to him. And maybe that's just bias. But I could go buy a red rum that looks nice too. Yeah. Right? I don't know. That's sort of where it's at. Marketing.
It's marketing. I mean, it's, some pastel lines. I mean, the importance of showing development in a project sometimes is big. When you watch a video by a ball python breeder, you see 2 generations leading up, you see adult animals. There's this whole process in the conversation where you're showing people what's going to happen. With boas, you don't get a lot of good breakdown videos like that. And here's the thing, I would love to do that kind of stuff, but I'm not gonna. I know me.
You should though. Like
I should, and I could.
Like if someone could helm, a YouTube channel about selectively breeding boas.
Yeah, I'm going to show you why I don't do things like that. But no, go ahead. I'm just going to show you my operation really quick, and then you'll understand why things don't get done.
Then I think you would be like, "Fuck, the sugar line of
ball python
boas is my favorite. Pastel line is my favorite, or Ferrari or whatever, like a rarer one."
Ferrari would have been Chris Canada Smith, and I fucking love Ferrari. Ferrari reminded me a lot of Flamingo, in all honesty. I think Ferrari and Flamingo are very similar.
This is a good setup.
Yeah, look at that operation, buddy. You want me to start making videos for the hobby?
You're doing great. It's the desire to show up and do the work that I think really counts.
It does. And here's the thing. If I was going to really do that, it would probably be with blue tongue skinks.
Please, blue tongues need help right now. They need support, and they have some support, but they need more because they're cool. And
they're so cool.
Them polygenically, like as a cool thing.
Yeah, skinks. If you want to talk about something where like you can just do experiments and show people development, number one, they grow very fast if you feed them a lot. So where I do certain pairings, within 6 months of them born, I could already show you the color transformation. But nobody's doing that. No one's talking about it, so they're not investable. Plus, you can't sex them, and I think that hurts the species.
I think it totally hurts the species.
Yeah,
but you need like a sex determination test.
Yep,
before it like really becomes a thing.
They do a thing in Australia where they'll put a dye in the cloaca and then they'll X-ray it, and how the dye goes through the reproductive organs. It's a male or if it's a female. Not a lot of people in the United States are going to go that route. I still think that the shed route is going to be the way to go on that. My only concern is, and again, I might be talking out of my ass on this because I'm repeating a conversation. I heard that the issue they were having with the chondros when it came to testing the sheds for sex and maybe inconsistencies is chondros. What are there? Or is there 4 locality or subspecies, or is it 5? Is that how it works with that community?
It's kind of full species status, some of them now.
I think I might have heard an argument that maybe if one was from here and one was from this locality or subspecies, however they were doing it, you would get inconsistencies on the shed test for male or female, which that doesn't really make any sense to me. And that might have been a cop-out because these pet tests are worth so much more money. Who gives a fuck about those chondro guys? But I don't really know. But I was wondering that in skinks because, where a lot of us try to keep things pure, I do think there's been some times along the way where maybe some Erie and Jayas got mixed into some pure northern stuff. And that's why we have certain looks and colors you don't see in or in Australia, I guess you could say. So I'd be wondering if that would affect my tests. But no, not being able to sex an animal makes it really hard to invest in because I did that with spiny tail geckos and I bought 18 of them and 15 ended up being males. So real unfortunate. I'll never invest in it again. Reeling it back to boa constrictors though.
Well, let's reel it back. A lot of people want you to do all kinds of fun stuff. They don't care about your setup or your amount of free time. So I guess you have to do it. Sorry.
Okay, well, I'll consider it. I do want to move into this scene eventually, but I'm gonna have to buy more duct tape, and then I'll consider. How about that?
Right, excellent.
But
I don't. To me, like I'm a big advocate of like not gatekeeping social media stuff, especially on YouTube, because like A, who the fuck cares, and B, every dumb little like ball python cutting video, even if only 50 people watch it, is like an additive of the ball python marketplace, because every Facebook post is not Google searched, so like you can't, it doesn't matter, it's like goes into the ether, like unless you remember it, it's never, the search engines don't crawl through Facebook, so fuck Facebook. But YouTube is forever unless you do something bad, right? So it can be searched though, so you can like SEO optimize the details, and then someone can learn about your dumb ball python clutch 20 years later, or your blue tongue skinks or boas forever. It's much more. It's like having a website almost. In terms of it, like
we are starting to learn that more, that social media is forever. I mean, here's the thing, and this is me personally, and where I go back to saying I'm nice to everybody. There's some people in the hobby I talk to regularly that a lot of people hate, but they've been so good to me. Why am I going to judge on your experience? When I have my bad experience, we'll start talking. You could say I told you so, but me personally, all my relationships in the industry are based on what you did with me and not what you did with other people.
Maybe I'm like a woman about it, but I don't really do that. Like I try to, I don't know, do like a holistic approach too. So I don't know what the right answer to that is. Like it's really hard, like keeping tabs of all personal grudges.
Yeah, here's the thing. So hard, so unhealthy. I made this comment recently. When I got my new phone, I had to like make space on it, and I deleted all my screenshots. So every screenshot from every conversation I thought went sideways that I just wanted in my back pocket for that day I needed it, got rid of them all. I feel better now. Like I really do.
That's good. Like so, like since I'm like into testing things, I know I talk to everyone, not everyone, but I've talked to a lot of people about who they got it from. So like I know who sent people stuff, even if they don't know that they had it positive, but I know because I talked to the person who got it and they were too scared to tell them, but they told me, and I don't tell anybody, but I have to keep all this in my heart.
Well, again, man, I really don't know. I mean, I'm not saying don't be fearful about what you're doing and what you're working with, but I mean, I hate to say it, and you're in the boa community and you get to hear about what's going on behind the scenes. I mean, let's just say hypothetically, a big boa breeder sold animals to 100 people in the hobby and one person found out their animal was sick. I mean, those other 100 people or 99 might not find out because, maybe they never would have thought that about that breeder. I think some things are out of our control. And, I think I had a conversation with carpet pythons recently about, I think they're putting animals with nido in an incubator to kind of help with the respiratory infection. And then it's clearing the respiratory, they're taking out and they're testing and it's coming up negative now for nido. And I think one guy I talked to was talking as if it was a cure, but really it's not shedding the virus if it's not showing the virus. So I think just responsible breeding and, knowing what you're working with and what could be passed on. Like I said, I've been fortunate enough that babies I've sent out, I haven't had any issues. I've had to do a lot of tests for Europe over the years, but again, I'm scared. I'm always scared because again, I've had these conversations.
What would it take for you to consider testing your breeding stock, just so you know, or would you never open Pandora's box, or what's the relationship there?
How about this? Let's just say that, collections have a pedigree on them moving forward based on testing for viruses. You know, what if I test and I find out there's a problem and I just don't want to tell you? Like,
Right.
it's so tough because here's the thing: we could all go through that, but you know, it's very costly on a big collection, unfortunately. And I don't know. I don't want it to make it seem like I'm not responsible. But we've had.
You can stop talking at any time if you feel
Well,
like.
no. Here, I'm an honest guy. I mean, and here's the thing.
Listen, I'm like the crazy bitch who's. That's all I've been talking about for 2 years.
Hey, and someday when the hobby turns on me, you'll be in the comments talking shit about me. I get it. Like,
listen, my point is there's an in between. There's like legacy collections that it's not worth testing, but we're testing the babies out of them, or we test 10% at a time, and we're like, oh, they're pretty good. We have babies that we know are from tested adults, so like there's no vertical transmission, so they don't really need to be tested because no vertical transmission, no cross contamination. And then there's collections that are like closed for 30 fucking years and nothing's ever happened, and they're probably fine. So like there's like permutations to this. Like animals are very complicated.
So a collection that was closed down 30 years ago when IBD started up, and you could have one in your collection with IBD and wouldn't realize it if your hospitality is so on point and your animals are so clear and there's never a stressor to make it come out of their body.
Right. So they could still have it and have had it the whole time. But
it's tough. Here's the thing. Like I said, the medical side of this industry is so tough because like there's responsible breeding, and I believe in it. I also do think that some things are, oh man, how to put this, not sound like an asshole.
Overblown.
Blown out of proportion. Just simple as blown out of proportion. Like I said, I've heard a lot of horror stories over the years, and I'm still seeing these collections everywhere fully functional. Now, maybe our time is going to come soon enough. But, you know, the reality is I know some species where a lot of animals, if not all animals, have an issue. And those communities are still going strong. They're just very selective of the animals they're working with. And when they do run into an issue, they don't try to save it. They humanely put an animal down to save the rest of their collection. I think in all practice, you know, the thing is, like, I talked to Junior about the industry a lot, and why is it in farming and all these other industries, they medicate like crazy and we don't medicate at all? Like, you know, why aren't we doing simple medications like Flagyl before breeding seasons? Or, you know, there's a lot of other little things you can do for the animal to boost their immune system, make them stronger. We don't dabble in that in this industry, and we may never dabble in that.
I mean, I think it's like twofold. You would need like the reason why farmers do that is because some ag extension did an actual study and figured out that if you give enough steroids to a cow at X time, it would whatever make extra milk or whatever. So we'll never have someone who would give us like peer-reviewed research like that. And the other thing is like, do we want MRSA? Like if we started to give way too much antibiotics to all of our stuff so they would breed better and grow faster, we would be doing the same thing conventional agriculture is doing. So like, yes, there's like a good like question there. Why, like maybe we should give them all bee pollen, which I think would be like an easy answer.
It's interesting. I like that. I've heard that come up in conversation before. Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I find it hard to police. I think that in the end of the day, you got to look at yourself in the mirror. I think that long-term bad practice in this hobby will catch up to you, and hope for the best.
All right, we got to get happy again.
Yeah, the little yodeler is gone.
All right, let's get back. Let's go back. Were you at reptileboas.com or redtailboas.net?
I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't consume reptile content like that. I've never been in any.
2002.
Yeah, I've never even been on those websites except for snaking pictures off. I don't think I've ever read a discussion on either of those. I've only ever listened to one episode of one reptile podcast in my entire life, and that was Bob Vu with Snakes and the Fat Man because William Philippek made me listen to it on the way to the show.
Why don't you like listening to podcast content?
Well, because I like talking to people. I just like talking to people and learning experiences. I like talking to people in different communities of their experiences. I like learning about.
Could hear someone you can't talk to. Is that
fuck that? Everyone was talking to Dave. Like I consume. Here's the thing. I mean, I talk about this a lot. I'm not a very good reader. I've always struggled with reading. They put me on a short bus when I was in school because I couldn't pass spelling bees. They put me in a classroom with like 18-year-old kids drooling on themselves when I was 9 years old. Like, I can't read very well. It's always been something that slowed me down. So you're right. Going on those things back then, I didn't want to consume that content by reading because I couldn't read fast enough. So I wasn't in any of those groups. As for podcasts, you're right. People talking to me, but I told you before, man, I loved Herp House Rock because I selfishly had conversations with people I always want to have conversations with to learn what I wanted to learn about species.
It was a good show. So people it's still up. People in chat, like if you're a new gentle baby and you haven't listened to them yet, you can go back and check them out.
Old content, but it's still relevant information because it was just breaking down species, and a lot of stuff hasn't changed over the last 5 years.
Right
now, I won't know the current event or who's doing what where, but those were just old school conversations. But no, I don't know, man. I just have my own way of getting information in, and my information is usually talking to the right people. Like I said, I just consume what I do, but I've never even read a fucking book in this hobby. I've never. I've got the Bible in there. I've got some not the real Bible, but the Bible for the hobby. I've got some very unique books in there and everything like that, but I take my magazine collection out more and categorize it and put little sticky notes in there for old articles from old breeders that maybe I want to reach out to someday and talk to. I just have I have my own way of consuming information that makes it stick. Maybe I'll jump into the podcast game sometime, but to tell you the truth, I kind of like listening to podcasts about other things that I can then translate over into this hobby, whether it's business podcast, economic podcast, political podcast. I think all that can be translated over into this dialect in these conversations.
What's your favorite non-reptile podcast right this second? What gives you the vibes?
The problem is it's all political and I don't talk about politics.
Don't talk about it.
No, that's true. But no, I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I'll be straight with you. I listen to 12 to 14 hours of political podcast all day long and I don't even vote.
That's why you're not listening to any reptile podcasts because you're busy observing.
Well, I like the culture in politics, man. I like the pop culture in politics.
You like debate lords? I
love a good debate if we debated, but I don't think we debate anymore. No, I don't know.
It's mostly I owned them or whatever instead of an actual constructive discussion.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It passes the time. I don't know if I'm a better or worse person for it, but I'll tell you one thing. I just talked to one guy in my life about politics, and me and him love to fight about every little thing because we don't see eye to eye, and I get off on that. So I consume 14 hours of information.
To train up to sharpen your blades. To get ready
just so I can call one of my best friends an idiot on a regular basis, and then we start talking about reptiles soon afterwards.
All right, that's fine.
But no, the economy, I think people should be paying attention to the economy. I think a lot of things that I say is because I take information in other podcasts about completely other things, and I have ways of having a unique conversation in reptiles about it. Just comparisons that maybe some people won't make. I don't know. That's just me. But no, maybe I should start listening to reptile podcast. I don't know.
You don't have to. I'm not trying to pressure you into it. Like to me, I'm not always learning something. Sometimes it's just the ambiance of people I like talking and having fun.
Yeah.
But I feel like I have to listen to some of them to get a zeitgeist check, the temperature check.
You said that.
What are the people on the street saying? How do they feel? Because otherwise, I couldn't bring content that would be I don't know, helpful, palliative.
Okay. So me personally, I got friends from all different aspects of the industry.
They're your street check.
I know about that shit before you know about it on Facebook. I've already started making memes of that and handing them out to people. I don't need to listen to find out what the fuck's going on because I have a lot of conversations with a lot of people. So
right, that a man on the street on the phone is also fine.
That's it.
Yeah,
man on the street. But no, I get it the way I get it, and then like I said, I backdoor make my memes. I mean, I'll be honest, if everyone's seen my work, but you wouldn't know I'm making these fucking things because I don't like being that guy. I poke fun in the background. I don't poke fun to your face.
Where do you seed the memes to get them disseminated without?
I just give them to one person within a community and say, don't fucking put my name on it.
Right, just post it and go.
Yeah, I'll just say, hey, take this as your own if you want it to be. That's it, man. It's my
Yeah,
own.
you're letting the butterfly free, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Goodbye.
here's the thing. I've got a unique group of people. Like here's the thing. I write jokes sometimes. I don't post them on Facebook. I send them to 9 people and I feel out the crowd. Like that's it. I just do things in this small little community. That's why I suck in this bigger community with this idea of working in like social media. It's never really been for me, but man, I fucking love the space. Like I really love the podcast. I love these conversations. I like the brutal honesty, man. I don't think there's enough brutal honesty in this industry. I think we tiptoe around certain things because we're too worried. I don't know. That's
Yeah.
just me. I don't really hold back. I just have one rule. I don't say a person's name in context of something I'm talking about. You know, I might talk about a situation, but I would never put anybody's name on it. If somebody's aware of that situation, they know I'm talking about that person, fine, they're in the know. But like, I would have never dragged someone's name through the coals in this industry on a podcast. I think that's dirty. Just the shit lives forever and nobody fucking cares about drama.
Yeah. So sometimes it's hard because sometimes like maybe they deserve to be named, but I don't know who's responsible for like.
Are you the
being
police?
Police, right? I don't know. Not.
I can't police every show where maybe somebody's etiquette on their table is wrong. I can't police everything in this industry. That's why I'm a stay in my own lane guy. I like to warn people that are close friends, maybe not to work with somebody from an experience maybe I had, but you're not going to see me online blasting people ever. It just doesn't happen.
I think it's better to be Switzerland in general, but I don't know. Sometimes it strikes me as like I'm being a coward because I don't want the heat instead of being brave and being like, this person fucks my friends constantly or whatever, you know, sends them arena virus constantly. It doesn't need to be, it's not even a debate. And then you're like, I don't know.
Well, here's the thing. So, you know, Darian or, you know, Morph Market does policing now. There is a level of policing on that website, and that's good. I'm glad I'm not the guy who has to make those decisions because you can't make everybody happy when you're the police. So, yeah, there's certain people in the hobby that are in their own way finding ways to improve on things, but like things are out of your control. You know what my algorithm is on Google?
What's that?
People who let their snakes go in neighborhoods and the news story picks it up. Every single day, I can send you a new news report from across the country and even other countries of invasive species going through neighborhoods. Like it's just we're our own worst enemy, and my algorithm shows me those stories every day. I can't police that. That's out of my control.
Right. And a lot of times it's like exterior to the hobby, not all the time, but like, you know, pet people, trailer trash, Burmese pythons, retics. There was one in Oklahoma not that long ago.
No, it's going to happen. It's always going to happen. Like I said, stay in your own lane, manage your own business. You know, if you want to be in drama if you enjoy it. But
I don't enjoy it. I just like want the hobby to get better. Because when I got back in to Boas, I was like, oh, sweet, we have an arena virus test, right? Sweet.
Yeah.
I was like waiting for big dogs to be like, yeah, like this is, you know, the hobby's moving forward with a, you know, like a thoughtful treatment. And apparently that was not a thing. Like I was just sorely disappointed. So I don't buy from them and they didn't want to sell to me.
No.
And like, thanks for taking care of the hobby that supposedly feeds your bills and pays your kids.
And man, I mean, when that person finds out there's a virus, it doesn't feed his family or his kids anymore, though. Like it could be the end of his career. It could be not even by choice. His collection could put him out of business because of, like you said virus.
Right. It's more like are they our leaders? Which I guess they're not, but like they're supposed to be your senpais. They're supposed to have experience and knowledge, but sometimes they don't, which is fine because we're not a pyramid scheme. We're like an amorphous blob of like amoebas that sort of hang out. I mean, we are, but I mean, in terms of like who tells what to do husbandry wise. Then like I just came in disappointed. I'm like, well, I guess I have to fucking do a podcast because nobody's teaching boa people that they could accidentally get arena virus at any time, and they need to be basically testing at any time.
Half this podcast has been us talking about arena virus without actually saying anybody's name. Well, I did say one name, and I'll apologize to him, but it's just, I do think this information needs to be out there. I think there's a right way of doing it, but I also think there's a lot of misinformation about all this. Just the fact that, again, it was only a few guys back in the day, and no saying what they had in their collection. And those are the guys that literally fueled this hobby to where it is today. And again, everything's still happening. And back then we didn't have the test, but we did have the viruses.
I know, but I remember taking snakes to the vet to have liver biopsies done to look for inclusion bodies. We knew it was a problem. Well, we euthanized snakes and looked at their brains and took blood smears and looked for inclusion bodies in Daytona. It was a problem the whole time.
Yeah. And like I said, there's going to be some things that are in our control and out of our control. And here's the thing. There are probably a few species that I would say probably are worth even dabbling in, just because of all the underlying things that are going on with them. So, pick and choose your battles, pick and choose what you're going to work with. Like what you're saying, buy all these healthy babies that are going to come back negative, even if they're positive, until the day they're positive. You're doing what you can, but it's still out of our control.
Right. But like boas are awesome. Their prices are boas. Relatively cool. Like,
yeah, we've ruined this boa podcast.
No, we have not. I'm just giving people the facts, right? The males are not literal shit that you have to throw away in 2 years. Like I have a male that just looks nice. A Pastorine Key West Molly. He's just nice. I can breed him to whatever because he's not het for anything. I can outcross him. He's like 7 years old. I don't give a shit. I'm still keeping him forever. Like he is still good because his polygenics were good to begin with, right? So like if you're tired of looking at a ball python and being like, damn, I love you, but bye, I can't even keep you anymore because you're a male and you've been here for 3 years. Like,
you're right. Projects move fast in ball pythons.
It's not fair.
Well, and that's where, again, unique species, where we talk about line breeding, sugar baby, like we were talking about a minute ago, like, there's still people that are putting sugar baby the Ferrari to try to make them look better. I'm not a big fan of what I've noticed in breeding boas, though, is sometimes breeding pastels to pastels almost dilute each other out. Like some complement, but like I've bred red rum to some like really unique, like, let's say, I'm not even gonna say the pastel names because they're all shit now. Not by shit as in quality, just there's always a breeder you might not like that works with it. I bred them together and I have not made quality animals. Like I've literally bred
just like the pink ones and the orange ones. Like when they squish together, those ones don't look right.
Like red rum is great on its own, and red rum to red rum goes a very far way, but I've tried outcrossing red rum to other pastel lines and it doesn't necessarily make a better animal.
Are you wearing pants
right now? Yes. This podcast I am wearing pants because I just came from work. They're not nice pants, and I changed my shirt for this.
Well, that's what Bods Exotic Reptiles would like to know.
Here's the thing. There's always a 50-50 chance I'm not wearing pants.
All right, can we get a little toes for free for the
They're
chat?
filthy. You want to see these fucking
just a little bit? Oh yeah.
Here. Yeah. Oh yeah. Fuck. I got my mom's toes too. They're all crooked.
All right. Yeah, I mean that was free. If they need more, they have to pay.
If there's more, maybe I'll do an OnlyFans and donate all the money to USARK. How about that?
I would love. I think that'd be excellent.
But no butt stuff. I've got rules in life. I draw a line.
Yeah, we're all about consent here. Especially for that stuff.
No bueno. No bueno.
All right, can we talk about like the changing definition of pastel? Also,
what do you mean by changing definition?
When it was pastel dream only, basically, it was side medallions that were basically mostly no black at all. The top, very little black in the saddle. So they could be like lighter or brown or red or whatever, but there was very little black in the saddles. The little triangles on the side, a little bit reduced, but they could have a little bit of black left and then a clean base. Not a lot of that like under gray that pops up when they do their fire up, fire down. That was a pastel a long time ago.
Well, that
now
was
it's like it's got color.
Yeah, well, to me, pastel is color. What you're telling me is just a very clean boa constrictor.
That's what pastels were in 2002.
Yeah. Oh, here's the thing. I bought a boa from my local pet store that today would be sought after as a pastel line because it turned orange as an animal. It was just this beautiful orange boa constrictor, but I had to buy another boa constrictor, so I sold that one. Because at the time it was more important for me to get into the albino project than focus on something that, in my opinion, was a beautiful animal.
Right, but pastel was like color neutral. Like the definition of pastel was color neutral
I don't know.
originally.
I mean, color neutral, kind of. I mean, like you said, Pastel Dream was kind of like one of the early ones, and immediately we knew there was something special about it when Jeff Ronnie made those bright pink albino boa constrictors that almost like started
Right, but
developing
like
that
the
orange pigment.
definition had less to do with the base color because you could add or subtract that. It was more about the reduction of dark pigment everywhere, which allowed whatever base color was underneath to be revealed, which obviously you would then add more. But like the original definition was color neutral. It's about cleanliness.
I guess so, but you also started the hobby a few years before me. Now, me, when I got in, it was all about cotton candy salmon snow boas. It was all about.
Did you have Jeff Ronnie's videotape?
I know people that collect his VHSs. I don't. If I honestly would like to get some of his old T-shirts of him on the comic or his bald. I don't. I've got weird things that I collect. I probably would like to collect some of those old VHSs. And I do have some old VHSs downstairs with some boa content, but I haven't come across any of his like for sale ones that they used to pass around. But I know guys that got a bunch of
breeding one. I paid $50 for it.
Paid 50 on that?
1998 or something.
I don't even think I know about that video because I bought the Tracy Barker one at Rich Eiley's place.
So if somebody has it and you could like rip it to the internet or any of them, that would be awesome because I think they're like quality. Because it was like he clearly like hit record on a VCR on another one and like hand did it because it was like in a Walmart generic VHS tape sleeve with like a
early
printer
pirating. You're taking money out of Jeff's pocket back in the day.
I didn't do it. He did it. That's how he sold them. I bought it from his website.
I love that then. Yeah.
Right. He was just like doing it. He was trying to spread the boa word.
Yeah.
And it had like a little like rainbow glitch as the VHS tape didn't quite work. I don't know. It was great.
So here's the thing. I know you said we're done in like 5 minutes. So I guess these last 15, I want to keep it as positive as possible. So I do want to say some certain things that we kind of talked about earlier. Number one, I keep on hearing this boa market, maybe not good as ball pythons. Every Tinley that I've ever had a good boa selection, I've outperformed any ball python Tinley I've ever had by 3 times.
Every single time is a good boa selection for people.
Anything with IMG in it. Like it. I'm telling you right now. A certain
number of like animals to think it's good.
Like on your like quantity on your table.
Yeah.
How about this? I once did $28,000 out of 2 display cases on a table of 4 display cases. My other 2 display cases were ball pythons. I did $500. I did $28,000 in my boa display cases. Now, at the time, I was selling boas that were going for like $6,500, and I did sell 2 of those at that show. But then it was all the other boa sales that I made that really were the breaker. When I did the Pomona show, the Anaheim show, a lot of vendors said they had a bad weekend. I did around 18, and I would say 19 or 16 of that was boa sales, and one of it was an $8,500 sale. But it's not that I'm even known for boas always. It's just, the selection's not always there, but the market is there.
Right. And a crowded, even like little show, a lot of times you're the only person with boas, period.
Oh yeah. Guaranteed a lot of time. Yeah. Richard Del Bono does very well at a lot of shows. I mean, we all have our bad shows, but when you walk in and one person has the best selection of a species, you're probably going to spend a lot of time at that table. Now, I don't think you have to only have boas on your table to be successful at boas at shows. And I think a lot of times, here's the problem with boas. I would not buy from you unless you gave me the one you didn't want to sell. If it wasn't your pick of the litter, I didn't want it. And I was like that for years in buying boa constrictors. And because of that, I think there's still a truth there today where I think there's just a little more of that selective buying in boa constrictors where, people want your best. And if you want to hold it back, they don't want your second best. They want you to repeat the process and sell you the best later on. And I think that's awesome, though. I do think you have to pay a little extra for that. And I have paid a little extra for those animals. But no, I mean, I guess my whole thing is this. We talked about viruses. We talked about how you have to figure out your own methods of breeding. We showed you that animal a minute ago, that IMG Carbon Project animal. I thought that's a beautiful animal. I think that's a great direction to go in. I think anything RDR line is the way to go if you're going to put any aneurystic type gene into your projects. The Black Devil was another big breaker for that project that really like got people looking at it. I love leopard VPIT positive animals. Now I do like the leopard Hondurans and leopard Costa Rican teas. If you want to keep your stuff smaller and keep it more pure, go that route. But the colors that you can get from the leopard,
habanero.
Is it the habanero? Is that what we call that? Sometimes I'm not good with the
with
nicknames.
hypo, it's habanero.
I just sent you a picture, and you might have to zoom in, but that's an absolutely beautiful animal for the leopard VPIT positive stuff.
It's my favorite version of leopard.
Yeah, I love that animal. I love the blood VPIT positive animals that are being produced today. I think that is a unbelievable way to go. I think there is more to do with T positive than T negative. I think.
What about archangels?
Archangel, that's the T negative, T positive, and like, is that Honduran or Costa Rican mix? Or was that
the Archangels CAT plus, so like Burke Stone.
Burke Stone to Honduran or Costa Rican?
VPI is Archangel.
Oh, that was VPI?
Yeah, Archangel. Well, the angel is Honduran Nick.
Okay, I guess I didn't know. I hadn't seen that one yet.
Somebody
that might be one
hit the Archangel recently. That's what they call it. I don't know the names.
And well, the names can be tough sometimes, and I think you've noticed in ball pythons we simplified a lot. Where now we just name most of the names. In boa constrictors, we have a few nicknames for boa constrictor projects, but really we just name it out. Like the Black Devil was one, and there's been a couple other Archangel, like you're saying. But
a lot of the club ones got a double name: Phoenix, El Diablo, Sun Dragon, Red Dragon.
Sun Dragon, Red Dragon, yeah, Opal Diamond.
We name doubles all the time. We just don't name any of the doubles that I like.
I'll take that. I'll take that. I'll take that. But like with boa breeding, like I said, you could be a ball python guy and walk into the dwarf or boa community tomorrow. You can buy animals that you can house in your CB70s their entire life. You don't have to change your setup, maybe your temperatures a little bit and your feeding habits. Don't fucking feed these things like ball pythons. But I don't know. I'm losing train of thought now.
We're just trying to stay positive.
I know, and it's so hard. So hard.
I got boas first when I got back in. Got ball pythons, but I never got rid of boas. They're like the easiest sleight of hand switch. Like a show is gonna be kind of slow. Just bring all boas. Some colubrids, and I'll just leave ball pythons at home. But I still have them because they're fun. Whatever. And then you switch it back if you feel like the show is going to go the other way, or bring some of both. Like they integrate well. They eat large rats. So if you have a rat colony for your ball pythons, boas can clear up the retired breeders or whatever.
Yeah, there's a lot of good. I mean, they do make good garbage disposals. Okay, we can go ahead and talk about that. But no, it's. I'll be honest, and here's one thing that I think is also very hard in the hobby, and I got a lot of respect for people that are able to do it. Truly having an eye for multiple species where you can create amazing animals with every species you're working with.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard financially too. Like if you're not all in on one species, you might not have enough money to be all in on 5 species.
Could use that species to maybe dabble in something else, but I think my argument or my comment is the eye for it. Like, even in ball pythons, I still think that ball python breeding now is more of an art form than it was 10 years ago. I think 10 years ago is put the most expensive and make the most reduced pattern animal you've ever seen in your entire life, and we're blown away by it. I think,
do you think most ball python people have an eye for anything except for repeating what other people have already done?
Well, no, you're right. And I'm not trying to be a piece of shit when I say that, but the reality is too, and when you get a lot of new people that come in the hobby, they need direction. I don't think there's anything wrong with watching what one guy is doing and trying to be inspired by it. Mm-hmm. I do think that you need to go out and find your own way, but I refer to a lot of things as recipes. And again, now bouncing back to, let's say, the ball python community. Justin Klebecka has a recipe. His ingredients are red stripe, black pastel, spot nose, and yellow belly. And that has been his recipe for a little while. Now, I'm not saying that's all he does, but I do believe that if those genes look good with a new gene that he wants to introduce to a project, it gives that new gene more value to him because it works with these other genes that he put together in a certain way to make a beautiful animal. There's still people today that are trying to make a Pompeii. 5 years from now, people will be trying to make a Pompeii. I love his recipe. I think it's a great recipe, but I think that in any species, and especially in ball pythons, when you're working with 300 different genes, you could find 3 codoms to mix together in a certain way that can take you a whole nother route. Ben Rennick, in my opinion, was the campfire. Campfire still to this day is that one animal that people obsess over. They love that fucking thing. I haven't done that project enough justice. I need to make more campfires, and that is the direction.
And make more YouTube videos about them.
And make more YouTube videos about it. But instead, I just told other people like Justin and Ozzy what the ingredients were 6 years ago, hoping they were going to make a clown version, and nothing ever happened.
Have you seen Garrick's? Like, Garrick's probably the closest. He has like calico, cinnamon, clown, yellow belly, or banana. Like, he's
coming along. Yeah,
right? It'd be very easy for him to hit it this year if he wanted to.
Yeah. And, also, when I was here doing the campfire stuff early on, I didn't know about the allelic thing with cinnamon and inchy. And then even after I heard about it, I was like, man, that's so dumb. I was like, there's no way. And then it ended up being. And then we found out there was 500 other things that were on the same chromosome that are doing funny things together. We never would have thought. Still to this day, like the Paradigm Project. Like, man, who would have ever bred a T positive type animal to a T negative to find out they were allelic? And that's the greatest thing about having a lot of people in one community, where I would have never considered doing that. That was a pretty crazy thing in Boas when that happened. That wasn't really, allelic was not really used in the hobby at all in a lot of different species. I think Boas to me early on was when I started learning about allelic. And I always make the joke in the ball python community, like, you teach them a new word and suddenly everything's allelic.
I miss pure boa and caramel though. I like the in between. 2 paradigms are fine, but like,
yeah,
someone should be selectively breeding, working on just pure boa. And I know some people are, but not very many.
Not enough. But here's the thing: there are people that are, and that is a different, richer color tone within the T positives, and everything you've ever seen done in VPI can be done in boa and caramel now. Kind of like everything you've seen in ball pythons can be done in desert ghost now, a gene that's been around for 30 years. Again, like, you don't really know when something's going to get popular within a species. Like Inca all of a sudden becoming more relevant. Me saying that the RDR line is the best line to be working with if you want to do anything aneurystic. We might find in 5 years that boa and caramel combos look better than VPI combos, and then suddenly we're going to have to do it all over again. Communities are going to reinvent themselves with old genes all the time, and it's always been that way once we figure out the right thing to do with that gene. Certain genes and certain species are going to scare people off. In ball python, anything wobble complex, super sable scared the fuck out of people. People are now just starting to put sable in, and they're just not trying to make supers. Spot noses early on, because the Powerball being wobbly, some people didn't pay a lot of attention to spot nose. Now spot nose is one of the more important patterns that have been put into clown and a lot of other projects. So like I said, with the bow community, it's the same way. Yeah, we only have a certain amount of genes out there, but Cookies and Cream by Del Bono. Love that animal. Me and him have history on that animal. There's just certain things that have been done along the way that, thank God somebody did it, because if they didn't, we wouldn't know to do it. And not everyone has every idea, but some guys just have a lot more ideas than other people. Some people have the resources to buy that new mutation when it pops up every 6 or 7 years. There's a lot of different ways you can manage a collection, no matter what species you're working with. But the reality is, I don't care if the animal is worth $5. If you find a way to make it look like it's $1 million, people are going to give you money for it. A lot of the ingredients, like the first podcast we said we were going to do was taking ingredients that have been in the hobby for 30 years in ball pythons and discussing what year the Pompeii could have been made, or what year a Desert Ghost Clown combo could have been made. And, like in different industries at different times, like for the people who know, the Desert Ghost Clowns were being sold cheap a few years ago. Maybe there's only a couple breeders doing it, but they were cheap. And then word got out how awesome the combo was, and the price went up 3 times, 4 times value in one day. The same thing happens in Boas. It's all supply and demand. Like, teach somebody
and hype. Like, I feel like that's like the most important thing I've ever learned is like, no matter what species you're working with, they're all beautiful. They all have projects. They all can be worked and loved and like cherished. But if you don't have like a quorum of people who all agree with you, you know, they worth their cost, whatever, $5, whatever it costs to make a leather handbag out of them, you know?
Yep.
So like, you have to like explain your passion over and over and over again until enough people believe you, right?
Yeah. So, and this is just an like just throwing random numbers out there, and I'm going to be really outrageous about this number so people know I'm being outrageous. Let's say that the first Pompeii sold for $100,000. Somebody was willing to pay that kind of money. If I made the Pompeii, would I have made $100,000 on it? Or is the branding behind a company the reason why these animals are worth what they were? Because, you know, brand goes a long way. People paid more money with Ralph Davis back in the day than they might have with other breeders because they wanted from Ralph Davis. And where I might not have thought to challenge the market on such a high price for an animal that maybe the ingredients didn't cost a lot of money, that was me just not seeing the value in that animal if I didn't come out with the numbers that some people do on these projects.
Do you think it's better? You know how, like, you know, it looks bad if like a small guy does that though, like, or girl, like comes in hot on like a new morph on a new species with like minimal prep, and you're like, you're not getting 10,000 for nothing. And so like that almost hurts the project, or would it be better to like accidentally give it to Justin or the Justin of Boas, which I'm not even sure we should pick who that is at this point, but and be like, you launch it and I just have a large stake in the project here. So when you develop it better, it'll make more sense being 10,000 from you.
Okay. Yes, it would if I'm the one. Yeah, I do agree with that. But also, again, thinking your animal's worth that much money. You know, you might devalue your animal just based on how hard it was for you to make it, even if it does look unbelievable. I mean, you remember when ball python morphs were sold by the gram once they got over like 1,000?
Yeah.
You know, I remember when inchies became relevant and literally there was inchies for sale on fauna for $2,400 because they were 2,400 grams. Like I said, that's just market doing what it's doing based on one person challenging it and doing it a certain way and us all following. I do think that somebody within a community can bring more value to the overall community. And I do think that, you know, that's something that Justin has done in ball pythons. And, you know, I hate to keep on referring back to Justin, but like, you know, I've seen a lot of businesses over the years and I've seen the coming ups, and, you know, there was just something special about the way that one was built. And the fact that once it got there, it stayed consistent. You know, we've seen people do great things and fall off. That business every week is wowing people with another video. You know, there's stuff there that he's doing to help the hobby as a whole. He will reach out to people that I won't reach out to. But
I'm still on a live. Sorry, there's a child with a gallon of milk.
Oh, that's all right. That's all right. Yeah, we're 2 minutes over. They knew it was time.
There's no time. I was just trying to just get out of here. I'll be out in a second. I love you. Goodbye.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm desperate for this for corn snakes. Like, I don't know if you've noticed, but like,
I love corn.
If Snake Discovery woke up one day and was like, instead of just like, you know, railroading hog noses 24/7, they spent a little bit of time just being like, corn snakes are cool. It would like change the entire market. Like, that's how powerful and influential they are.
Yeah. And you know, here's a beautiful thing to tell you about that. And here's a case study. So at Arlington, there was that 2 Arlingtons ago, they put Snake Discovery in that one area that ended up kind of like monopolizing the whole show because their line was out the door. Were you at that show?
Yeah.
Did you see my table?
No.
Yeah, because
there was a bunch of
Yeah. Now, here's the beautiful thing about it, man. I'll have to see if I can find you the image. But like, so here's Snake Discovery. Here's Ryan McFay with VivTech. Hognose breeder, who I can't remember their name right now, and I see them all the time. I feel like an asshole, but they always wear silly little hats. And then there's me. And this line's coming down this aisle. And when it got to my table, it like kind of went away from it, like as far away from it as possible. And then it dipped back in at the very next table where the hognose were, and he had an unbelievable show. And then I went to Ryan McFay's table with all the bioactive stuff. He sold the fuck out of light bulbs. I made $0 on Saturday, but two people next to me made bank, maybe one of their better shows. Because the person that was drawing people to our area was drawn to hognose and drawn to bioactive setups.
Right.
And these guys had an amazing weekend, where my $1,000 to $5,000 boas and $1,000 ball pythons was just not appealing to the crowd in front of my table. So they chose to drift away from me.
Yeah. I wish they'd come back to this, the last one. Last one was, I mean, you vended, right?
Yeah.
It was so dead. I left early. It's because I was just traumatized.
It was a lot lighter crowd, and I'm sure it affected some breeders more than others. But yeah, that was a tough one. But what were you gonna? I don't have an answer for that one. I do think that snake discovery is a huge benefit for the hobby. The same way that I thought that Brian was a huge benefit of bringing people in that might not have seen the hobby without him.
Right.
So, and here's the thing. I'm not gonna. I'll talk about this another time. But no, I do think that there's a lot of benefits through a snake discovery in this industry to improve the industry. I do think that there's ways of marketing through her that are going to bring people in that have never seen it. When me and Junior talk about, like, I don't know, Saudi Arabia buying snakes, and these little collections in these little rooms, you're like, wow, I can't believe this is there right now. My response is, well, then I would probably start putting hashtags in all my Instagram posts that might put eyes on somebody in Saudi Arabia. We don't, here's the thing, like, this market over the last 20, 30 years, like, we get into, like, it's kind of like, it's been us. And then Europe started buying. And then the Asian market started buying. And now I'm telling you that there's people in Saudi Arabia that might be breeding snakes. What happens is we kind of like set the trend, but the only thing that hurts us, in my opinion, like with Europe, is Europe only bought our best leopard geckos. They only bought our best crested geckos. They only bought our best corn snakes and boas. And now they're making the purplish sharp albinos in the world. They're making some of the more refined leopard gecko projects. Like, them only buying the best, even though they came into the market after us, in my opinion, they're way ahead of us on a lot of projects and quality.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of true for some things in Korea. Some things in Korea, they just like blast them and they just breed whatever. That's not nailed down. But like, yes, that's true. Like, if we're truly selective, you have to pay way more to import it. You're going to get something that knocks your socks off instead of slopping around at a show and getting it for $200. So like, you know what? This has been a great time. Hopefully everybody in the chat enjoyed it. I had fun. I hopefully didn't make anybody mad. We love all boas equally and they're all perfect in every way. Arena positive or not.
Yeah. We should have referred to our list of things to talk about, because I think we dabbled on two things, but I thought it was a great conversation.
No, boa is like an infinite topic because you're talking about something that's like sort of ephemeral, like the perfect boa and your dreams and aspirations and what you're in, and it's much more like poetic. So it needs like hundreds of hours of content, is what I'm saying. And just like, I'm gonna slap together a Pompeii when they just poke each other and I got a ball python clutch. Yeah, it's different. It's a different vibe.
Every community is a different vibe. Like, here's the thing, and I know you're wrapping this up, but like, let's just say you want to get into gray bands. Oh, you better tread lightly, buddy, because if you cross a gray band from this road called Kentucky and this one called Connecticut, 2 blocks away from each other, oh, you are going to get torn the fuck apart.
All right, I have a question. I have Kennerly eye. I have one from Pecos County, and I was thinking of buying one from the next county over to breed. Will I be, murdered?
Well, not murdered. Dragged through the coals. Told about the disservice
I think I'll
for
be
that
murdered.
Species. I mean, maybe. I mean, hey, it's the
They're
same
from the
way.
same like physiogeographic region. They're just one county over.
It just sounds like you don't understand the species.
All right, no, I'm so out of touch.
Yeah, I'm sorry, man. Clearly, if that's your logic, you're not paying attention. But no, rosy bows are the same way. Rosy bow guys are anal, but they're anal for a reason. But then I think when it comes to mutations, like gray banded mutation stuff, like I think everything gets thrown away at that point. And I think that's the way a lot of these communities are.
I love hypo crazy gray bands. They're really fucking awesome as like a smurf that you can be like, it's cool.
I love gray bands. I would like to dabble in them. I would like them on my resume someday. Rosy bows are the same way. I buy a few here and there just because I love them. I'm not gonna support myself off them. The groups might just support themselves in the end of the day, but there's a lot of stuff I want to work with just because I want to work with it. And rosy bows and gray bandeds are pretty high on the list, but I'm obsessing over large colubrids right now, though. Pine snakes, bull snakes, king rats. I kind of want to go that
way.
way.
You have Carinata yet?
No, I just been saving pictures of them on a daily basis. But it is. Well, the problem is I don't want to buy one thing.
I like the wild type the best right this second. Like the morphs are cool, but the wild type is fire.
Wild type is fire. And I would just selectively breed wild types for years, but then I dabble in morphs because I am morph motivated in the industry. I've always been morph motivated.
Can I interest you in our Lord and Savior Alafe Climacophora?
Is that a real question? Is that a yes, sir? Well, here's another thing about Dave. I'm not even gonna lie to you. Remember I told you about that reading disability? I'm not good at Latin names.
Okay.
I'm scientific names. You got to dumb it down sometimes for me.
Kunashir Island, Japanese rat snakes, blue, green, teal. Very easy to take care of because they're like basically a Pantherophis in a blue-green sheath.
All right, so I love Asian rat snake anything. Honestly, so going back in time to the Pro Xotics fire, I honestly, one of the saddest things to me about that situation, well, no, there's a lot of sad things. This might be wrong to say, but they were building this beautiful Asian rat snake collection. And Chad was going overseas, talking to these breeders, bringing these amazing animals back. I was really sad about that. If there was anybody that was gonna there'd be more in the industry right now if it wasn't for what happened in that fire.
Yeah.
That changed a lot of things because I think they would have brought them a little more because they would have marketed them in a way where a lot of people would have bought them that didn't even know they existed. But no, I don't know.
Did they have Climacophora then? I didn't even think they did.
I don't know if they had that. And if they did, it would be on the DL, but I just think he was chasing after everything from any Asian rat snake at that point. So I would think that that'd be just something I'd assume be in his collection at one point. Again, that's an assumption. Maybe I didn't stalk it properly.
I've been trying to stalk down, supposedly the Japanese four-line, Alafe, whatever, it doesn't matter. Because the Japanese four-line was in the hobby, got lost, and no one knows if it exists anywhere in the hobby anymore. And because Japan's been closed for a long time.
Yeah.
And it's like my secret fantasy, some guy in a basement somewhere has the last colony of 20-year-old Japanese four lines. That's my dream.
Yeah, that was the most hobby thing I've ever heard anybody say, and it is probably real. You know what you got to do? Just get over on Fauna. Go find
I'm on Fauna every day, waiting for my dream to come true.
Well, you're doing it wrong. You need to go on Fauna and find somebody who posted an ad 14 years ago who probably doesn't have Facebook and message him and say you're still working with them. And it didn't work.
And I messaged the circles too. I'm like, do you know anybody with a basement in Europe? Their basements are deep, right? They go deep. And they're like, no. It just might be one of those things where I have to give up on my dreams.
Maybe. Well, no, give up sometimes. You got to know when to throw in the towel sometimes. I'm
waiting for some pants to reveal something on accident in Germany.
Maybe Glenn Reptiles has them. Glenn has everything.
No,
no.
It's just funny. So Climacophora is my solution to that. That's because that's all I got, right? But they're blue, so I like that.
Yeah, you're settling.
Yeah, I'm settling for blue.
Yeah, you'll get used to settling in life too. Hey, maybe if you line breed them long enough, you can make them green.
Well, I don't want them green. The four lines have a melanistic version that's Karasu no Heibi, which means the crow snake. So I want the all black four line crow version.
I think you're gonna have to send me some pictures of this because I don't bullshit people. If I don't know, I just don't know.
Okay, it's fine. You don't have to know. I'm just saying we all have dreams. Right?
As soon as you send it to me, a little light's gonna pop up. I'm like, oh fuck, I've been looking at these forever. But that might be the case. I'm not as smart as I look.
You're very smart. Thank you for coming. Lisa also donated $4.99. Thank you, Lisa. I'm sure you'll be on again because we had fun. I had fun. I think the chat had fun.
Well,
you have a crazy mustache, apparently.
Well, I used to have a crazy. I shaved my mustache off first time in 11 years. I just have this little pedo stash now. This real little thin thing.
How
Yeah.
do you feel about it? Are you feeling good or?
Well, how's my mouth look? Because I haven't seen it in like 10 years. I don't have to part food like it used to be. Like I take this hand and I'd like move all my hair out of the way and I just be like throwing food in my mouth. And I did that for years. I don't have to do that anymore. I do this because I eat a lot of drippy foods. Yeah, I don't know.
I
I
still
think
not having to deal with any of that.
it's different. Here's the thing. I love the mustache when I only have the mustache. Mustache and a beard, it's a bit crowded. I think I'm going to go with this look for a little while.
Right, if a lady's trying to get in there to give you a smooch, she has to like part the.
Yeah, I hadn't done a lot of kissing last decade. Yeah, anything that I did involved me partying hair out of my way. You're right.
Right, you're right.
Really, I'm sure I really let the ladies got in the last decade. I can almost guarantee.
I'm sorry.
Hey, I'm not.
Maybe
I had a great time. Yeah, I wouldn't change a thing.
Right. You're right, 100%.
But I will say this: men like mustaches more than women, and not just gay men.
Oh my God.
Straight men will buy you a beer with like you got a handlebar mustache, man. They look at you like you got a Purple Heart on sometimes. Like they're gonna come over and let you know how great it is.
Well, you're doing like what they want to do or would advocate to do.
Live single.
Listen, my stupid husband, I love him, but like he's in the Air Force, so he can't have a beard because but they'll let him have a little mustache that'll fit under like the oxygen mask because he flies in the C-17s or whatever. Yeah. And I'm like, it's the worst thing I've ever seen. If you can't kiss it, you just want to like chew on it like a fucking baleen whale and like rip it off or something. I just hate it.
Hey, that sounds like that's like a whole category.
It's a whole personal problem.
Well, you get by though. You're making babies.
Thank God. All right, let's look at this real quick. I need to like
Rosy Bowl localities.
Just like why they should be kept pure because they're fun.
Yes, they should.
They're different. They're all a little bit different.
They're all a little different, and sometimes it could be this mountain range from that mountain range. I mean, there's a lot of real simple things, but yeah,
I love them.
Psychotic Xotics had a ton of these, and one year I was offered wholesale for like almost everything you can imagine. I said I'll get you next year, and then they sold the company. It's my fault for dragging my feet, but if 2 years ago I would have done what I wanted to, I'd have 100 of those animals right now.
Do it. I think every cool little good species pet deserves an advocate somewhere. Right?
Yeah,
and Rosy Boas are awesome. And there's not enough of them at shows. And look at all the fun. This is BajaBoas.com if anybody wants to like look at their collection.
You should do a Rosy Boa one sometime. Bring them on.
I would love to. It's more like a time problem. And every time I do a non-ball python episode, we get like 200 views. So this one will have 200 views.
No.
People people cannot handle talking about other animals. They're like, I would never.
Well, maybe me being on here will change it. Maybe just put
maybe it's your like, upper lip reveal.
Yeah, but then that makes me seem arrogant, like people want to listen. No, I bet you get 250, maybe 3. Like
maybe it's not that bad, but it's like there's a clear bias against just any species highlight episode or guest that is just not ball python.
Well, you know what you need to do, and I will be doing the same thing, is you need to take clips like Joe Rogan does to put on YouTube of 5 minutes of us talking about a European market that's fascinating, and then you can trick them into watching a bunch of bullshit. Right,
I should. That's a time thing. Like I have the VODs basically saved, but then you're like, you've accumulated like a couple hundred episodes. Like which VOD was the best? Where is the timestamp? Like I need to pay an intern to go through and like just tell me what part was funny or interesting or like a coherent thought.
Yeah,
and then I could clip it. But like now I have to do it. It's hard.
Yeah, I think that goes a long way. And honestly, I think that brings people in the conversation that they might not realize they're interested in. And again, that's something that I'll be personally doing just because I think
everyone should. It's just a pain in the ass.
Oh, hey, man, you got to ask what you want out of your business. You need a partner.
Wink. Is that a wink? Is that a suggestion?
Well, I would love to do work with you anytime. I'll do work with anybody. I'll dabble in any part of the industry. If you ever want, we could. I still think we should get like Del Bono on sometime. I would love to have a 3-way with Del Bono talking boas because again, his viewpoints are different than other people's. I love my conversations with Vin Russo. My conversations with Vin are very different in the boa category. I don't know. I like crossing things up where people have different viewpoints, and then we all just talk about it.
Mm-hmm. The hard part is like I talk about something fairly contentious, which is arenavirus, which some people don't even want anyone to talk about because they don't want anyone to test their stuff. Yeah, they think it's like that. I try to be pretty chill about it. We can talk about this later, but Jason Reptile says, if I show my boas on IG, it hurts my BP views and overall engagement. Right. So if you have like a mixed species collection and you switch Instagram tags, like the next time you switch back, all of a sudden it won't push the second time. Like if I did pure boas, I would do better than if I did what I do now.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit of everything.
Understanding the algorithms, which I honestly, a lot of that's over my head. I'd probably have to have somebody do that for me.
Mm-hmm. All right, we did it. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Shane, all the sponsors, and all the super chatters. We had a bunch, especially William. He's the best.
Good. William's a good guy.
He's like a real team player and fun.
I like Brill.
Let's wave like this, like princesses. Bye.
Oh, yeah. Oh, wait. No, is this it?
I don't